Okay, you're away. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we seem to be away again. I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Councillor Welllands, for telling us about that. Right, we're now on. Yeah. There will now be a proposal to amend the agenda order for this evening's meeting. In order to ensure that there is sufficient time to consider this evening's essential business, I would like to propose to move items 6, Leaders' Report, to item 17 to be considered immediately before the item on local government reorganisation. To move items 10, 11 and 12 to follow the item on local government reorganisation. Is that seconded? Yes. It's been seconded by Councillor Knowles. Right. Council is making a decision on whether to amend the agenda order, and the proposal has been proposed and seconded. Those in favour, please raise their arm. That's carried. So you could just say it's a revised. Yeah, copies of the revised agenda have now been tabled this evening. Third item on the agenda is the declaration of members' interest. Do any members have any interest to Okay. Yeah, we did that. Yeah. The third item on the agenda is the declaration of members' interests. Do any members have any interest to declare on any item of business on the agenda? If so, please can you tell me the number of the item and whether your interest is a disclosable pecuniary interest, an other registrable interest, or a non-registrable interest, and the nature of that interest. Okay, Councillor Beadle. Philby. Okay, right.
Yeah, I'd like to declare on item 12, which is for the returning officer recommendations to the community governance review on Mouseley. I'm the chair of Mouseley Parish, so when you're discussing this item, I'll leave the chamber and then return after.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. May I remind councillors to ensure that their registers of interest are up to date and any new or amended interests are reported to the monitoring officer. When I come to item 4 on the agenda, the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 9th of December 2024, which starts at page 5 on your agenda pack. Is council in agreement that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting on the 9th of December 2024 are an accurate record of the meeting and can be signed as a true record? Okay. Councillor. Right. We now come to item 5 on the agenda, the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 9th of December 2024. Which start on page 7 of your agenda pack. Is council in agreement that the minutes of the ordinary meeting on 9th of December 2024 are an accurate record of the meeting and can be signed as a true record? Councillor Knowles. Okay, I shall now sign the minutes. Okay. Item 6 on the agenda is to answer written questions from the public. No questions have been received from the public. Item 7, to receive public petitions. No petitions have been received from the public. Now move on to item 8 of the agenda. Questions from members, which is on page 21 of your agenda pack. The answers to these questions were sent out earlier today and hard copies have been tabled. Okay. The first written question has been received from Councillor Moder. As Councillor Moder has given her apologies, a written response to her question will be provided to her. Second written question has been received from Councillor King. Councillor King, would you like to read your what's it, question out, please?
It looks like it.
Right. Thank you, Chairman. What do you want me to do? Read the question out, or have I got a supplementary that I'm allowed to ask?
Please. I'll ask you a question if you want, if that's easier. Yeah.
I've got a supplementary I want to ask. So, is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I thank the portfolio holder for the response. What I'd like to ask though is what is being done to ensure that the operational capacity of the car park and enforcement service doesn't get down to this inadequate level of number of people again, and fail like it has, because obviously it's not been effective and residents have been reporting that. So I want to know what's being done to sort that out. Thank you.
Councillor Woodywis, would you like to answer?
Yes, thank you, Councillor King. As you know, we're going through a regular recruitment process on this, but what can be done to make it a more attractive proposition, I don't know. So I'll defer to Kat over there if she's got a further answer.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair, we are continually reviewing the job description, apologies, and the salary, the market conditions, all of the things really that we can review to ensure that the job is attractive as possible. I'm sure members would appreciate it is a relatively difficult job to recruit to. At times it can be a difficult job. You're out there in all weather and sometimes taking criticism from members of the public. So it isn't a particularly attractive job at the best of times. So we are continually reviewing the job description, as I say, the recompense for the role, to ensure that we are offering it at good market rates and that sort of thing. We are also continually looking at benchmarking, so making sure we are paying a fair rate. We look at neighbouring authorities, we look at neighbouring counties, and we're continually reviewing that. And where we absolutely can't recruit, and we are getting quite concerned about resource levels, we will at times resort to agency staff, but that is something we try to do only when we really, really need to, because as you can imagine, that's quite an expensive option. So we try to put public money to the best use. So that's just a few examples of what we're doing around recruitment. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you, Chair.
You want to ask any supplementary?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Right. Right, we'll move on. The third written question has been received from Councillor Mahal. Councillor Mahal, would you like to read your question out, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would like to give my thanks, first of all, for the answer given to myself from the portfolio holder. But I would like to, and I appreciate what the sentiments within the answer are, but I just wondered whether, with regards to the promise of financial support in the first year, I'm a little bit disappointed that there isn't anything more positive in the second year. And I would appreciate finding out what the cost implications would be of the climate impact officer, and whether that money would have been better spent on the residents and any issues that they're facing, because obviously and also which budget this amount for the climate impact officer has come from. Thank you.
Councillor Asher, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I can respond to that. Obviously, the climate impact officer part, the recruitment part, is not in my portfolio, but the grants part is in my portfolio, and I'm hoping that will be well received, and also the £500 per property to residents. That's obviously in the original answer. But the part that you asked about the employment, that's obviously not part of my portfolio. So
You wish to ask a supplementary question?
Yeah, if I may, I mean, is it possible to know which,
Sorry, you can't ask this.
can't ask?
Okay. Fourth written question to be received is from Mrs. Page. Councillor Mrs. Page, would you like to read your question out, please?
Nearly. Thank you, Chairman. No, I wouldn't like to read it out to save time. I just have a very short supplementary question because the last paragraph states that the scheme will be launched in March and it will be started shortly afterwards. Well, as we all know, March will be the start of the PERDA. And I was wondering how this will be administered, not to disadvantage any of us dual hatter councillors. Thank you.
Councillor Knowles? Do you want to respond, Councillor Knowles?
Yes, but first of all, I'd like to apologise to Councillor Page. It's taken too long for this to come back. It's 5,000. It is now in the schedule and it's on the stocks to get it sorted out. So again, thank you for raising it. With regards to the PERDA situation, we are well aware of PERDA. It's something that I've been talking to the officers about, and we will drop you a note back just clarifying how it's going to have to be handled, because I do appreciate and understand there's the delicacy of the situation.
Right. Final question is received from Councillor Wellband. Councillor Wellband, would you like to outline your question?
Yes, thank you very much for the answer, Councillor Knowles. Obviously, it falls short of what Rutland County Council agreed at their full council, I think a couple of weeks ago, where they said there's going to be public consultation and a final member vote before it gets submitted to government. And I note that you've also said that you are happy to take it to scrutiny post-submission. And I would just ask if it could be pre-submission for it to go to scrutiny. And also in the Joint Leaders District statement last week, it said that there was going to be public consultation. So I'd be grateful if you could outline what that's going to look like. Thank you.
Councillor Knowles.
Yeah, so that was a lot. Yeah, Chairman, thank you for your supplementary question. This is the subject of a separate section. I think it would be far better that we cover all of this when we get to that point and go into the details that are necessary. Because otherwise, they're giving half the information now and half the information when we get there, Chairman.
Is that okay? Okay. Item 9. We now move on to item 9 of the agenda on page 115 of the pack. Budget and medium-term financial strategy, 2029-2030. Appendix 9 of the report was emailed to all councillors on Friday and hard copies have been tabled. There is also an additional document tabled this evening noting changes since publication. Under Rule 14.4 of the Council Procedure Rule, when the council's annual budget is under discussion, the leaders of the two groups of the council and the cabinet member presenting the budget may speak for up to 10 minutes. We will take the comments from the two group leaders as the first two speakers in the debate. All of the councillors may speak for up to 5 minutes each. Following the debate, immediately prior to the vote, the mover of the original motion will be given the opportunity to exercise their right to reply. I invite Councillor Graves to present the report.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good evening, councillors. I am pleased to have this opportunity to present the Coalition's second budget. First of all, though, I just want to double check with the Section 151 officer of a very minor correction to the second bullet point on the second page, please. Page 116 on your agenda. It says the 1.7% increase in fees and charges for 25-26 should read paragraph 3.14. and not paragraph 3.15. That's just a minor correction, so you don't get sent off in the wrong direction. And also, please can I check whether anyone is missing the extra documents that have been tabled? The chairman says have been tabled, but unless I think you went to the middle of the desks over there to obtain one, you may not have them. I'm going to refer to them. So if you've all got them, that's great. I'm getting a couple of shaken heads over this side. Ella, did they get distributed? And if not, could we distribute them? Meanwhile, I will get going, I think, to save time, Chairman, if that's okay, unless anyone
Yeah,
objects.
that's a good idea.
Thank you. As I say, I'm pleased to have this opportunity to present the Coalition's second budget. It is a budget that, again, like last year's, provides opportunities for all. This year, it provides both immediate and medium-term support to both our residential and business communities. It directly supports families, protects our environment, provides opportunities for business growth, and secures the council's medium-term financial future, so we can be sure of delivering our ambitions over the years to come. The council is reaping the benefit from investing in growth in previous years, but we, unlike the opposition, intend to share that benefit as broadly as we are practically able. In respect of investing in our communities, we intend to invest in our towns and parishes, providing direct funding to them so they will be able to deliver additionality to their already limited budgets. We are extending the community grant scheme to 2026 to 2027, which will deliver an additional £2 million over those 2 years directly into our towns and parishes on local priorities to those communities. Further, following positive discussions with Lutterworth Town Council, we are reimbursing them for the consequence of a financial decision that is quite a few years ago. We will also continue to invest in younger people to make sure that their ambitions can be realised, into activities related to the leisure strategy so our community's health and well-being can be supported, and develop a vision for growth with the publication of the local plan and supporting this growth across the district by the development of a growth team within the planning service. We are also freezing green bin charges and freezing car parking charges for a second year by the use of new technology and new resource allocation measures. In respect to the devastating floods that have impacted our communities over the past few weeks and month, the council is directly supporting those communities impacted and our communities more widely across the district. In the autumn of last year, the administration agreed to bring into the budget a dedicated post that will both support emergency planning processes and directly tackle climate impacts across the district. However, we have gone further by allocating £100,000 that will firstly provide financial support to those who were directly impacted by the recent flooding, and also fund to support the identification of high-risk flooding areas across the district. In addition, we are rebuilding resources within the council's teams to enable them to deliver better services for our communities. I've already mentioned the development of a growth team within the planning service, but we are also bringing in additional resource within the environment and housing team to support additional statutory priorities, as well as deliver the administration's priorities in relation to net zero, housing, open spaces and waste collection. Also some necessary resource to support our finance, human resource, customer services and assets functions. I can't go without saying that devolution and local government reorganisation is going to impact the council, or is most likely to, over the coming few years. To help this, the council is allocating resources to undertake a review of special expenses so that our towns and parishes can be directly responsible for the delivery of services as close to their communities as possible. Also, the council is allocating £150,000 into a specific reserve to enable it to develop the best case it can so that the needs of its residents and businesses are represented in any future local government review business case. In respect to the coalition being able to deliver its ambitions over its term of office, as shown in the medium-term financial strategy, the council has a balanced budget. This budget does require an increase in council tax for 25-26 of £5.32 for a Band D property. This will help the council to meet the additional capacity needed for the ever-increasing demands on services and additional statutory responsibilities. But even with this increase, we are still facing a budget gap into 2029-2030 of over £5 million. So we have to use reserves to ensure that we can remain financially sustainable. The council will, however, be making contributions to reserves in the early years, which can help it to meet some of the funding challenges in the later years. And it must not be forgotten, the medium-term financial strategy does recognise the significant risk posed by the potential impacts of the new fair funding formula and business rates reset that the government will implement from April 2026. But still, after recognising all this financial risk, we are still able to deliver for our residents, our businesses, families and the environment, as well as maintain reserves at well over £12 million by 2029-2030, which in anyone's eyes is a very healthy balance for a district council. This is a budget full of reality, ambition, opportunity and support for all across the district. And I hope that all in the chamber will support it. And yes, Chairman, I'm formally proposing the budget. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Knowles. Does anyone wish to speak on
I
the
reserve my comments, Chairman.
Okay. Okay. Oh, Councillor Bateman.
Yep, I am definitely here, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am currently covering the shadow finance section of the opposition after the resignation of Councillor Hallam. And I just have a few comments with regards to the budget being put forward this year. Thank you to the portfolio holder for his introduction there into what's happening. I suppose the first thought that comes to mind is it's a bit of a dull budget, really. I thought you could be a little bit more flamboyant with it. We're a bit we all know that local government reform is on the way. We all know that Harborough District Council, as it stands, as it is currently, is not going to be here potentially in a couple of years. Whichever way you look at it, whichever way the reforms are put forward, the government is adamant that district councils and boroughs will cease to exist by 2027-28. So I think whilst it's very good that you've managed to keep the community fund going for 2 years at £1 million per year over the next 2 years, I think you could have used some of those reserves that are Harborough District residents' money. There's a lot of it there. I would say that thanks to the previous administration, we brought you a nice little nest egg when you took over control of the council a couple of years ago. And it'd be nice if you perhaps had been a bit more, as I say, a little bit more flamboyant with the money. You could have raised the community grant to £2 million per year over the next 2 years. And also from comments from some of my residents who've made applications to the grant scheme, the community grants, make the application process a little easier, just as something to add there. I am very happy to hear that the members' grant is coming forward this year. Again, I would say, though, over the next couple of years, it would have been nice if perhaps you'd looked at doubling that to £10,000 per member. I know it sounds a lot of money, but you don't get a lot in the public sector for £5,000. You really don't. And whilst it's great, we're grateful that it's coming forward and that there is some money coming forward to every member of the council. It would have been perhaps prudent to have doubled that so that each councillor can spend some of the hard-earned money that this council has before the council disappears, and all that money gets swallowed up into whatever unitary structure comes forward in the future. And it is, at the end of the day, Harborough District Council residents' money that needs to be spent in Harborough District, and you people are the best ones to spend it at the ground level on your individual wards. The environmental grant, I didn't catch whether that was going to carry on, the green environmental grant scheme. I didn't catch whether that's continuing into the next financial year. Perhaps the portfolio holder could just confirm that for me. And the phrase support across the district is very good. I think that's a good thing. But I do think, again, you probably could have done more. We're in an era of inflation again. Look, it's hitting 3%, which is way above the government's target. Our residents are facing a 2.99% increase in their council tax, whilst the services are going ahead on this district. But I think you could have probably done the council tax at naught this year and frozen it again. You've done it with the green bins. You've done it with the car parking charges, which is great for those that subscribe to the green bins and those that use the car parks. But every resident would benefit from a 0% council tax increase this year. Yes, it would make a difference over the MTFS. I appreciate that. My figures, I've been quoted at 1.1 million over the MTFS, but bear in mind that goes beyond local government reform, that we won't be here. And the cost is around 210,000 for this year if you were to do a 0% increase. I would like to propose an amendment to the budget, if I may, Chair, in as much as I'd like to propose that it's put before the council to actually vote on a 0% increase in the council tax for 25-26 for Harbour District Council. Thank you. I have nothing else to say. Thank you very much.
An amendment to the motion has been proposed by Councillor Bateman. Councillor Graves, are you prepared to accept the amendment?
No.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. As the amendment has not been accepted, do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Rickman. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Rickman. We will now debate the amendment. Councillors may now speak for up to 5 minutes. Councillor Graves may speak at the conclusion of the debate, when I will invite him to exercise his rights of reply, after which we will move directly to the vote on an amendment. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So first of all, I just want to thank the officers for the report and thank Councillor Graves for outlining his luck and good fortune from in taking over the finance portfolio holder a couple of years ago when the administration changed. As you mentioned, the benefits of long-term growth in the district, and as Councillor Bateman has mentioned in his proposal of this amendment, the easiest way to share the benefits of growth across the whole of the district to every householder, every resident in our district, is to freeze council tax. That goes without saying. Yes, you've got lots of spending proposals, and I gave up counting how many different spending proposals you have, where you're looking to spend money by giving it to different organisations to spend on things they think are important. But what you're not doing is proposing to give or stop taking money from our taxpayers, from our residents. So that's why I'm supporting this amendment, because, as you mentioned, even with all your spending proposals and spending plans over the next 5 years, even in 5 years' time, you'll still have nearly £13 million in reserves. So freezing council tax seems like a jolly good idea now. It makes financial sense, and it would give a small amount of relief to our hard-pressed taxpayers. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Knowles.
Chairman, I'd very much welcome some comment if we can. I know it's unusual for council from our 151 officer on this, if he's prepared or able to make a comment. I mean, my immediate reaction is, well, we saw that one coming because we were expecting it. But I think the thing is, we're talking here about a situation which is somewhat speculative, because none of us know what's going to be happening in the next financial year. So I think we've delivered here a very prudent and a very sensible budget. It's one that actually looks after our communities, and I would not support changing this tonight. I think it's not the right way forward. We're talking about £5.30 per household over a year. It's not as if we're the county council with £100 million hole in our budget. This is a very, very stable and sensible budget. And as I say, I won't support putting it back to zero tonight. I think it's folly to do that. But I would welcome any comments the 151 officer might wish to make.
Through Chair. Thank you. So I forgot to stand up. Yeah. So it is £5.30 for each band D. if you were to freeze council tax, you would have to find for next year just over £200,000 additional from reserves, or you'd have to find savings somewhere of 200,000. Over the medium term financial strategy, that 5-year period, it'd be over £1 million you would have to find. It does compound. The one thing I would add is that there is some risk 26, 27. The government's new funding formula and business rates, we don't know what direct impact that's going to have on us yet. We've tried to model it, but that could be quite heavy. So where I sit at this point in time, I think you need to get as much resource as you can now and be as prudent as you can now, just in case that headwind does come to fruition in 26, 27. Thank you.
Councillor Page.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you very much, Councillor Grace, for the report. And I really welcome the financial reimbursement to Lutterworth. Frozen car parking is also quite good. And the commitment to invest in town and parishes, alas, it being in the form of a community grant, which is with a limited criteria, which in a way can buy tea urns, but it can't buy the core services, like, for instance, street cleaning and fly tipping and the prosecution thereof. This is what my residents really, really want. And if you come over to some of my villages, where we have got endless hedge cutting, mud on the road, a street cleaning service that is more often than non-existing would be most welcome. It was said at the previous scrutiny meeting, well, there are only 2 street cleaning machines and it's very difficult to get them over to that side of the district. Now, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more investment in those core services, in particular when I think Councillor Grace said at one point in scrutiny, spend. So I would have liked to seen that spend going on actual core services, and I can mention a few more. It was just said that freezing the council tax will only save £200,000 per annum, and over the whole council period, £1 million. That is only something we are saying we are going to give in community grants. So for me to share the wealth when our community and a lot of people are faced with hardship, every little pound counts. And I think passing that wealth on by freezing the council tax, it must be very welcome to all residents across the district. Thank you.
I think Councillor James, did you have your hand up, please? Yeah. And can members keep to the actual amendment, please, and not go off on various different ways, please?
Okay. I've got green and red flashing lights here. Okay. Okay, colleagues, I mean, I think a lot of sensible comments being made, but I would just like to say one thing slightly different. First of all, to thank the officers for putting this together. This is a massive project, a massive programme that's been put together, looking forward some 5 years. And what's so good about this is that we are looking, what we're doing here tonight, we're giving our residents 5-year stability. You know, there's an increase there. Now, the previous administration and our administration last year, we go at 0 council tax. That's okay sometimes, but in a period of inflation and uncertainty, you fall off the edge of a cliff. Any business will do that. I've had personal experience. You try and you hold and you're wrestling with inflation, and then you have to take a big jump. This is a cautious budget in that sense, but it really does give stability. 2.99%. We are lower than the county. We are lower than the fire service and the police service, I believe. So I think we're sort of doing our bit there, and I think I would commend it on that basis. We just, there is this, the Director of Resources has mentioned this, is that we've got this situation. There is an unknown over the fair funding. There is an unknown over what with business rates. We are very fortunate with the business rates that we've got, and we could be vulnerable to a really big change there. So I think I can't support the amendment because I think that the whole strategy is right. We are giving stability, and I just wonder, you know, how many councils there are in the land in the position we're in, and you know, this is built up over the years. We accept that. We are in a fortunate position. Let's stay like that. If there's windfalls and things, no doubt we could look at things again. I'm looking at the director here. You know, if we are or better, then there's an opportunity next year. But let's set ourselves on a strategy that makes our residents feel comfortable that they can deal with. You know, we talk about inflation. I mean, 2% inflation. You go shopping in the supermarkets, I tell you, it's more like 30% over the last year. Don't accept the 2%. So we don't know what we're going to face. There's instability in the world, in Europe, and we just don't know what the future holds. So I would commend this. I can't support the amendment. I would support this one because it gives us certainty over the next 4 or 5 years, which will be the end of us, won't it, really? We can't do any more. Thank you, Chairman.
Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Bannister.
Thank you. Just waiting for the red light to come on, and I want to echo the thanks that my council colleagues have given to the officers in assisting the administration in the preparation of this report. I'm speaking specifically in relation to the amendment that Councillor Bateman has now moved. I support that amendment, and in part I refer to paragraph 7.3 of the report before us, which is page 144 in the papers. And just to remind councillors what paragraph 7.3 refers to, it's referring to the reserves over the MTFS period. And in particular, I was struck that this time last year at the council budget, we were approving the MTFS, which was forecasting total reserve balance of £14.8 million. All well and good. Bearing in mind, of course, that there's also been a raid in relation to the reserves in order to fund the turbocharge of the preparation on the draft local plan. But we are now told that the forecast over the MTFS period is no longer £14.6 million. It's gone up by 21% to 17.7 million. So this time last year, 14.4 was approved to be a good thing to have within the MTFS. So my argument is that given that significant increase in the reserve forecast to 17.7 million, the 21% increase, I think there really is the headroom that we can have a look at how best we can spend those monies, particularly bearing in mind the fact that this council will not be existing anymore at the end of the MTFS period. Who knows what the shape of a unitary authority will be, but we do know one thing for certain: Harbour District Council will not be in existence. So I really believe that there is that headroom to do something of immediate benefit to our residents, and that is by freezing their council tax for the next 12 months. So happy to support that amendment. Thank you for the time, Chair.
Just Just a quick request through you, Chair. Could I just ask the Section 151 officer, please, to respond to Councillor Bannister, because another part of the report was talking about the reserves going down to 12 million at the end. If you could come in and just advise whether Councillor Bannister's understanding of that 17.7 million is correct or whether it's nearer the 12, that'd be great. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Yeah. Yes, that is correct. So at the end of this MTFS, we're getting to 2930, okay, which is 1 year further on than last year's. And the estimated reserves at that point in time is 12.8 million. But if we look at 28-29, which when we set last year's budget was the last year of that MTFS, the reserves there were £14 million. This year they're 17.7. And that is, there's a commentary on that in Appendix 1, I think it is. I've just got it on Appendix 1 and paragraph 7.3, Roman numeral 2. That comment is in there. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm grateful for all those comments on the proposed amendment. I note all of those. Some well-made comments, and I understand the position you are coming from. However, I think the Section 151 officer outlined the facts, which then Councillor James latched onto very clearly, which is that the 0% council tax reduction this year has over £1 million of reduction by itself over the 5 years. And I'm not saying that it's 0% this year and maybe you keep it at 0 the next and 0 the next. This one decision takes £1 million out of the income. And a very significant thing has happened between last year's budget and this year's budget. And it's the change in the prediction of business rates funding and the removal of 2/3 of our business rates funding and the replacement of it with a damping formula, which is a bit like taking redundancy from a job. There's an initial throwing of money at the authority, which then rapidly recedes over just 2, 3, or maybe 4 years. So the position we're in is that the longer term security of this council has been severely impacted in the last 12 months by that business rates reset, I think is the best way of calling it. So we this year have to look even more intensely at our income, at our year-on-year income, the income generation. So I just don't believe it's responsible to put 0% through, however much is being funded by reserves. There have been comments this evening about the community grants from reserves and local plan, accelerated local plan from reserves, and 1 or 2 other projects and maybe assets from reserves. These are normally one-off projects, whether it's a community grant fund that then goes from an additional year or 2 through reserves is another matter. But to put it at 0% and take £1 million out of our reserves over the medium-term financial strategy is not responsible. So I'm voting against the amendment, and I hope that the whole coalition, the whole room, and maybe other members opposite may vote against the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Start again. Council must now vote on whether to accept the amendment. The motion as amended is that in recommendation 1 bullet point 8 is recorded to reworded to say, yeah, you it'd be better you wrote it.
So just to confirm the amendment, so it's that in recommendation 1 bullet point 8 that it's reworded to say that the Harborough District Council's council tax level for a Band D equivalent of £177.97 and that each property band for 25-26 be approved as set out in Appendix 9, amended to reflect a 0.0% increase with any changes in income to be funded from general reserves.
Okay. Because this is a vote on the budget, a recorded vote is required. The officer will now record the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So as the Chairman's pointed out, we do require a recorded vote on every vote on the budget. So I'll go around the room in alphabetical order and ask you all to state whether you are voting for the amendment, against the amendment, or whether you're abstaining from voting on the amendment. So first, Councillor Anderson.
Against.
Councillor Esher.
Against.
Councillor Bannister.
For the amendment.
Councillor Bateman.
For the amendment.
Councillor Bilby.
For the amendment.
Councillor Birch. Councillor Burrell. Councillor Dan.
For the amendment.
Councillor Elliott.
Against.
Councillor Finan. Councillor Foreman. Councillor Gare. Councillor Galton.
Against.
Councillor Grafton Reid.
For.
Councillor Graves.
Against.
Councillor Hollick.
For.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor King.
For.
Councillor Knight.
Against.
Councillor Knowles.
Against.
Councillor Mahal.
For.
Councillor Nunn.
For.
Councillor Page.
For the amendment.
Councillor Rickman.
Needless to say, for.
Councillor Sarfus.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Wellband.
For.
Councillor Whitmore.
Against.
Councillor Woodywis.
Against.
And Councillor Worrell. Okay, we'll just add those up. So that is 13 votes for the amendment and 17 votes against the amendment. So the amendment is lost.
The amendment hasn't been lost, so we will now return to our debate on the original motion. Any councillors who have not yet spoken on the original motion may speak for up to 5 minutes, and Councillor Graves will be invited to exercise his right to reply immediately before the vote. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As Councillor Graves mentioned earlier, this is the second year you've had to put a budget forward. This is equally the second year the Conservative Group has had to respond to your budget announcements since 2007. And just wanted to say a few things and make some observations about the report. So in the executive summary, it's made very clear that resources available from the government have already decreased. And it says that the council is not immune from pay, price and demand pressures being experienced throughout the country. And it also says the council will have to deliver significant savings across the period of its MTFS to achieve a self-financing budget position. Okay, that's interesting. So then we move to paragraph 4.5.1, and it says that the council it says in the middle of that, it says that it cannot be said the council is financially sustainable because on a year-by-year basis, its income does not equal expenditure. And I think that's fairly self-evident in this report. However, as I said earlier, the Rainbow Coalition has been exceptionally lucky because you've had a couple of big dollops of money from extra business rates, and you also had the capital received from the sale of residential building land at Diverden Road, in Lutterworth. And But what else does the MTFS tells us? So it tells us that the expected net cost of services will be 27% higher in 5 years' time than it is today. And it also tells us that net expenditure will be even higher than that, 36% higher, due to the near quadrupling of capital finance costs. So just to stand still over this time will require the council to burn through an enormous cash mountain of £13.281 million. Now, that's an awful lot of money to burn through just to stand still. And yet, over this time, it's proposed that the council tax is set to be mercilessly ratcheted upwards. So we're all going to have to pay more, a lot more. The new mantra seems to be spend, spend, spend. Along with that, of higher, higher, higher. Yes, this year, an additional 10% increase in staffing. And in the budget, in the summary, which very grateful for the 151 officer summarising all the additional personnel hires that are being proposed in this budget, 24.2 full-time equivalents, new members of staff are to be had. Now, I accept that some of those might be necessary, but that's a very significant increase in staffing over 2 years, so approximately 45 people over 2 years. Apparently, although that doesn't seem to be the case in car parking enforcement until this year. And in the background to all this, there is a monster pay increase claim by the trade unions, which some of you might be aware of, for a flat increase of £3,000 per member of staff and a 2-hour reduction in the working week for no reduction in pay, allied to the stripping away of trade union regulations and restrictions on strike action. There's a very real prospect of serious issues for this authority in the future. And just to put that in perspective, if we just added that £3,000 increase to the 24 members of staff that we are going to add this year, that would add over £1 million, £1 million extra in staffing costs. Once you add on the 35% pension contributions and the 15% employers' national insurance contributions. Yes, the jobs tax from the Labour government. So I can't support this budget.
1 minute left, Councillor King.
I'm not going to support it. And you talked earlier, Councillor Graves, about you being prudent and we need to increase income. Well, the two biggest income generators, two of the biggest for the council, is car parking charges and green bin charges. And you've decided, and you're proposing, to freeze both of those yet again for future years. And I'm not disagreeing with you in some senses, but I'm just wondering, one of the theories of getting people to switch from using cars to public transport was to increase car parking charges. I wonder how that's working, because that doesn't seem to be what we're about. But anyway, overall, as I said, this is a spend budget. Thank you.
Councillor Ashton.
Yeah, I just want to speak in support of the budget and to actually say that if we want money to prevent flooding, we want money for better services, Councillor Page referred to. Where do we get that money from if we freeze the council tax? Councillor Bateman said the budget should be more spend. Councillor King has said the budget is spend. I'm very confused about the position of the opposition here. And I totally support this. A lot of hard work has gone into it by the Section 151 officer and by the portfolio holder. And I think that we always knew that there would be questions asked over the budget. But I do think that the questions that are being asked aren't to support the residents. Again, it feels a little bit like political game playing. So I just think everybody should support this budget and take it through. I mean, the increase, nobody wants an increase on any of the bills, but the increase on our council tax, the main part of it is not coming from HDC. It's coming from Leicestershire County Council. And we're in a good position. We want to continue to be in that good position. People are talking like we're going in 2-3 years. We don't know. We haven't got a crystal ball. Let's fight and try and keep the council as it is. We don't know what will happen. I think this devolution was looked at in 2019, and then it got pulled. So who knows what the future holds? So I think for now, we have to support this budget, carry on as business as usual, and do what we can for our residents. Thank you.
Councillor Galton.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, like Councillor Asher, I am a bit confused. We don't seem to be getting a sort of consistent position from the opposition for a coherent or single message, because Councillor Bateman said that he welcomed the additional investment in the grant scheme for 2 years. And yet Councillor King saying, well, you know, we shouldn't be spending all this money. There are terrible times ahead. What we have here is a balanced budget, and we have substantial reserves. Yes, we'll need to be careful going forward. But I do think that there's some criticism of staffing increases implied in what he said. But I think that what we tried to do in the last 18 months, 2 years, basically is undo some of the damage that was done by that side, particularly with the BC 25. In my own area, you know, the planning service was on its knees because we had taken out crucial capacity in that. You had got rid of the compliance officer. We've managed to put that back in enforcement. Key areas of the council have been cut back, and staffing in particular. And what we've tried to do is to start putting some of that capacity back into the organisation so the council can fulfil its functions and do more in the way that Councillor Graves has set out. Now, in terms of why it would be unwise as to freeze that, I mean, first of all, we've heard of the national things that are happening, and I think we all agree that there's considerable uncertainty in the future in relation to what the government might do for local government, and of course the review. And we may need to spend more money than put aside to make sure that we end up with something. We're going to discuss this later, obviously, the best possible outcome against the local government review. But I want to finish with one particular area where it's not yet known, because of the review taking place. Members are committed to this review, which is, I think, probably one of the worst decisions that was taken by that side of the chamber in that, and that was the open spaces issue of saying we're no longer prepared to adopt open spaces. We're going to bring in the private companies, private sector management. Now, as you know, we've committed to review that, but until that review is completed, we don't know what options are going to be possible. What we do know is we want to go back, if we can, certainly on new sites, to having greater involvement by HDC and by the parishes, and we're going to need to support the parishes to do that, to take some of those. Goodness knows there's going to be development coming forward with new areas of open space and so on. So I want to make sure we've got the capacity to react to that in the best way possible, because that really was one of the worst decisions that was taken to go for this private management. Thank you, Chairman.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I just, I'll not repeat what I said, but if we pass this budget, we can go away, and I should be paying this, so I can go away and know that I'm going to pay the 2.99. I tell you what, I wish I could be certain that the energy companies would be doing that. I wish the water companies could tell us they would be doing that, and I wish the railways could tell us they'd be doing that. So I'm very happy with what we're doing when I compare with what other utilities and activities are doing in the UK at the moment. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Salford.
Thank you. I support this budget, and I remember when 4 years ago, when Councillor King was the leader, that there was a shortage or cuts were made regarding officers. And obviously the most important thing is that we provide the right officers in the community. And by not putting the prices up on green bins and not putting the prices up on parking, is for us to encourage people in the community balanced. And I think under the Tories, we had green bins going up, and important to have money saved. It's like some Conservatives want us to spend, Well, that's what their government did when they lost their last election, when they spent. So I believe that this is a balanced budget, and it's fair that the tax goes up to only £5. And when you work out the charges on bin charges, the charges on green bins, £5 is nothing compared to how much it would cost to put the green bins up. And, you know, to say that you want people to use the bus services, well, County Council don't necessarily provide a very good bus service. So it wouldn't be exactly encouraging people to want to go on to buses. Thank you.
Councillor Knowles.
Yeah, I reserve my comments. I need to
Okay, Councillor Mrs Page.
Thank you. I'm not going to go on the line of he said, she said, and whatever. We've got a budget in front of us, and at the end of the day, we have got to accept it, but whether I like it or not, but I would just like to raise a couple of points, because I think it is really unfair to keep saying that our group has cut all the staff, etc., etc. Those days were different. And at the time, when the BC25 challenge was there, management were asked where they could do cutbacks. And it wasn't our group, the Conservative group, that said compliance officers have to go. It was simply because the management of that particular department said, we can do without a compliance officer. So it's really pointless going over all of this old stuff. But, and Councillor Asher goes on about 2019 when the councils, yes, it was a different era. We all were looking at changing and reorganisation. But if Councillor Asher may read the Labour manifesto, there might be nothing in there, but one thing is for certain, there will be devolution. And it does say it will be by 2029. It's a fact. So what are we going to do with this money? Why not spend it on our residents between now and then? Because we are talking most likely a total new administration, a total new unitary, and our money will go over to that unitary in the first place. So we might as well do our jobs and do something good for our residents. Now, and what does the county council do? I tell you what the county council do. Here, we collect the bins. The county council has to get rid of all of it. But mainly the county council supports adult social care, children's care, and special needs transport, and lots of things. There are a lot of things that are going on. So within that budget, they're doing pretty well. So the county council, and this is my book there, has even spent £100,000 on providing pickers and equipment for the Wombles and litter pickers to help the Wombles to pick all of the litter that is degrading my rural areas. Whilst, in my humble opinion, and this is my point I made in my earlier speech, I would have liked to have seen maybe this council to support our staff who are fighting a losing battle with extra money to pick the litter, to clean the streets. So for me, that is where it was important. Extra money to core services our residents want to see. And they didn't want to see an increase in staff where over £13 million budget to stand still probably contains 9 million of staff cost. So thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Bannister.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start with a fairly minor matter, but I think that the principle has got me slightly confused when I look at fees and charges and I look at the fees to be charged at the markets and the stall holders, other markets and so on. They are either remaining the same or they're being reduced. The only group of individuals that may have to pay more in respect of the farmers market, it's the farmers. And having regard to the motion that this council passed at our last council meeting, I don't know why, and I'll be grateful for a response as to why the farmers market fees have gone up when everybody else's market our fees are frozen or reduced. But in respect of the budget itself, I just have a few comments to make, and that's in relation to what are the real concerns of our residents, and should this budget be addressing the priority needs of our residents. I don't think that this budget does. There is provision for flood relief, drainage repairs and so on, but I honestly think that more could be done and more can be found to help the residents within Harbour District that have suffered with the flooding. I think we're too cautious with that approach. The climate is indeed changing. Storms are becoming a much more regular occurrence, and we really should be budgeting for greater resilience and greater help than what this budget is setting out. Councillor Galton raised the issue of the maintenance of open spaces, and I really do think that we need to do more in relation to helping those resident groups that are currently being affected by poor land management companies. It seems to be an age that this current policy review is going on, and I fear that the options, when they do finally emerge, will be a fudge, and that will be of no help to the residents that are being affected today. And I think there should be budget provision in order to lend assistance to those resident groups that are suffering from the poor land management services that they are currently getting. I honestly think that we need more effort to be spent in respect of fly tipping. It is a scourge within this district, and I know that we've got a good team and they do react as well as they can be, but fly tipping remains an eyesore on our roads and lanes across this district. They linger longer than they used to be, and I really think this budget should have made better provision for those. So those are my points. It's difficult to support the budget when, in my view, it can go further. If it means a rebalancing, a recalibration within the reserves, then so be it. But these are the priorities for our residents, and we should be addressing those priorities so that they know this council is being responsive to their needs. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the portfolio holder for the budget, much appreciated. Can I just comment on green bins, because it's been spoken about a few times tonight. I don't think that the cost of our green bins are anything to shout home about. You can go down the road to Blaby District Council and pay half of what we pay, and you get it collected for longer. So do not keep shouting about how good our service is. It's the one thing on the doorstep that people moan about to me, along with fly tickets in my area, and I think that's a discount. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Mahal.
I just wanted to add to the comments that Councillor Bannister has made regarding land management companies, and I've had residents who are dealing with a situation from a couple of years back, and the response is very slow. even though I've intervened a couple of times and they just haven't fulfilled successfully the request by the residents. So I think residents could do with action sooner rather than just words. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sure Councillor Graves will have some points he wants to make. I just want to pick up on one or two things. I'm a bit surprised that we now seem to have developed a crystal ball, which enables us to say that the review which is taking place is going to end up in a fudge. Because I don't know how we know that, but you know, the speculation is there yet again. And I'll be very interested to see what the officers come up with as the alternative, because it's something we need to look at. The opposition seems to be in a state of absolute confusion to me. I mean, first of all, it's not unexpected, and you know that they will be saying you should do this, you should do that, you should do the other, because that's the job of the opposition. But what I find confusing, and maybe it's a demonstration of the split, that you've got one part of the Conservative group saying this is a spend, and you shouldn't be doing it, and the other part saying this is a spend, it's a great idea. So there seems to be total confusion as far as I can see. Whether we've got two separate Conservative groups in opposition now, I have absolutely no idea, but I wouldn't be surprised. I've got to pick up on the comment about de Vernon Road because we had this discussion at scrutiny, Chairman, when it was denied that this de Vernon Road had ever been brought to a discussion. And I think Councillor Gare very kindly outlined that Councillor Beagle had actually tried to move a motion some considerable time ago to get some of the money back for the people of Lutterworth. And we've done just that. We've addressed it. We are now regenerating relationships with Lutterworth Town Council, and they are far, far better than they've ever been. And we have offered them £100,000 subject to approval of the budget. And it at least goes some way towards righting a wrong that should never have happened. So this is a balanced budget. I hope everyone will support it. I'm not going to try and debate BC25. I'm certainly not going to debate the green bins, but I'll be very interested to have a chat with Councillor Bannister afterwards about contracts and how they are put together at the time of discussion and negotiation, because maybe that's something we should be talking about on the green bins. So the bottom end for me is I hope everyone will support this. I'd like to thank Councillor Graves and the team for the hard work they've done on this. It's a tremendous budget and something I would commend to Council.
Councillor Graves, you wish to come back now?
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I'm grateful to all councillors for their comments. I think it's been a good debate. I think a lot of comments have come out, some on one side, some on the other. And I'm grateful to members of the coalition that have spoken as well in support. I'll try to respond to as many of the main comments as I can. I think that's only fair. Starting with Councillor Bateman, who stood up first. I can't agree that it's a dull budget. I know that's something that you might try and label it as, but £3 million over 3 years to the local community, I don't think that's dull. Being able to freeze green bins and parking charges, I don't think that's dull. I think it's the right thing to do. And just a little technical comment for you all, because of the structures that we've inherited, those are ring-fenced commercial activities, and you can't just increase or reduce because you end up bringing a subsidy in from elsewhere. So I think Councillor Dan, you complained about the cost of the green bin charge. However, if we wanted to suddenly reduce it to £40 a year, there would be an incredibly stern letter coming from the Section 151 officer about fair funding and allocation of resources. So we have inherited a commercial contract funding structure from the previous administration, and we've checked all the costs. The costs have come in the same, so that's why the costs are the same, and including parking as well. Yes, Councillor Bateman, the local government review is coming. We all know that, and I know a few councillors on this side of the chamber who stood up and talked about two different messages coming from the opposition. I hear that and understand where each of those views comes from. But I would side with you, Councillor Bateman, in terms of looking at the local government review, coming down the corridor, as it were. What do we do with our reserves? What do we do with our budget? Where do we spend it? If we can spend it, what are we going to do? Councillor King, I just don't share your desire to see cuts. Your obvious recognition of more limited income in future years, but when DC 25 came about, there were some real concerns. There were some talks about whether letters have to be written about the council's income. Is the council going to get into a serious situation? This isn't the present situation. It is a different situation. So I don't share your views that, you know, really things are woeful, things are so bad and we have to keep cutting. I'm more aligned to Councillor Bateman's views on appreciating the budget for what it is. We are in the situation, local government review is coming. It's not a done deal. Local government review may not happen. It may not get over the line. We could be sitting here in 3, 4, 5 years' time doing more budgets. But at the moment, it does appear to be coming down the line. And we believe that the coalition has pitched the budget at just the right level in terms of council tax increase, in terms of use of reserves. And to go on some of the comments, starting off with Councillor Page, the investment in services for your parishes, your villages. Other opposition councillors have said they want to see, I think Councillor Bannister, you raised fly tipping, you want to see more investment in that. You can't keep doing that at 0% with inflation being what it is, with costs going up. You want to see more services, fine. We all want to see better and more services. We want to see more of this, more of that, but it has to be funded. So moving on to some of the other points that have been made. I've already talked about the £1 million impact of the 0%. That was really dealt with in the amendment, so I won't mention that again. I've dealt with Councillor Dan's comment. I think I've dealt with most of them. Councillor King, you mentioned about the 24.2 full-time equivalent staff. I think comments have already been made, basically, that there were, with hindsight, too many cuts in Budget Challenge 25, and that we've had to rectify that. A number of issues have arisen. We have simply had to put extra bums on seats to get things done, to keep everything rolling, and to, where possible, increase certain services or put in new schemes like the community grants. I don't believe the green grant or the climate grant is going to roll over again. That was a specific identification of a fund of approximately £500,000, and that was an excellent use of resources. But I don't believe that is proposed in this budget to happen again. I wonder if it's for 2 years. Okay, thank you. Councillor Asher, thank you for your comments. Councillor Galton, thank you for your comments. I believe I've touched on both of those already. Councillor Sarfus, thank you very much for your comments. I'm very grateful for your support for the budget and your comments about we must provide the right officers in the right places, which is in our community. So I think that's very well recognised. I've already mentioned Councillor Page's comments regarding the desire to see better services. So I think I'll leave it there. I hope everyone in the chamber will support this budget. I think it's pitched exactly right in terms of where we're going for the future, our investment in our communities, and the right level of securing funding for the future through the 2.99% council tax increase. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Council is making decisions on this report, and these have been proposed and seconded. So as this is the budget report, a recorded vote will now be required.
Thank you, Chair. So same procedure as previously. This time we're voting on the substantive motion as set out in the report. So when I call your name, if you could just say whether you are voting for the substantive motion, against the substantive motion, or whether you're abstaining. So first, Councillor Anderson.
For the budget.
Councillor Asher. For. Councillor Bannister.
Wish to abstain.
Councillor Bateman.
Against.
Councillor Bilby.
Abstain.
Councillor Birch. Sorry, was that for? Thank you. Councillor Borrell. For. Councillor Dan,
Abstain.
Councillor Elliott,
For.
Councillor Finan,
For.
Councillor Foreman, Councillor Gare,
For.
Councillor Galton,
For.
Councillor Grafton Reid,
Abstain.
Councillor Graves,
For.
Councillor Hollick,
Abstain.
Councillor James,
For.
Councillor King,
Abstain.
Councillor Knight,
For.
Councillor Knowles,
For.
Councillor Mahal,
Abstain.
Councillor Nunn,
Abstain.
Councillor Page,
Abstain.
Councillor Rickman,
Abstain.
Councillor Sarfus,
For.
Councillor Wellband,
Against.
Councillor Whitmore,
For.
Councillor Woodworth,
For.
and Councillor Worrell.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so having added those up, we have 16 votes for the budget, 3 votes against the budget, and 10 abstentions from the vote. Therefore, the budget's carried.
Yes. We now move on to item 12 on the agenda, page 407. Returning officer.
Policy statement.
Okay, we now move on to item 10 of the agenda on page 343, pay policy statement 2025-2026. I invite Councillor Knowles to present the report on behalf of Councillor Beadle.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I will present this report on behalf of Councillor Beagle, who's not able to attend this evening. The report comes each year from members to approve as a requirement of the Localism Act 2011. The pay policy statement is a statement of fact. It has to be reported annually and published on our website. The main points are that for 2023-24, a fixed annual rate of £1,290 for grades up to 10 and 2.5% for grades up to 11 to 14, and also the Chief Executive was agreed. This was actually less than the 3.5% that we budgeted for across all grades. Also, the Localism Act requires councils to calculate the pay multiples between the highest and lowest earners. In 24-25, our pay policy statement multiple was 5.01 to 1. This falls well within the limits of the multiple of 20 to 1, as commented on in the review of fair pay in the public sector report by Will Hutton in 2011. On that basis, I propose this report to Council tonight.
Happy to second that, Chairman.
Right. We will, it's been proposed and seconded. So those in favour, please raise your arm. So that is carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 11 of the agenda on page 357, Corporate Plan 2431. I invite Councillor Knowles to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. As members will be aware, the current corporate plan was approved by Council in May 2022, with a plan spanning 10 years until 2031. Following the change in administration in May 2023, we've conducted a light touch review of the plan, and I must give my thanks to Liz Elliott and Kay Atkin for their work supporting this. Our review concluded that we are happy to stick to the four main themes of the plan, but we have prioritised 13 of the 23 corporate objectives for us to focus on in the medium term. These have been marked in the plan MTP. We have gone out to public consultation on the plan with the objectives, and the feedback can be summarised as follows. In terms of the general public, then generating employment opportunities 3023, closely followed by protecting and enhancing the natural environment, CO11, were the two most supportive objectives. In terms of our parish council consultation, they perhaps unsurprisingly stated communities managing and shaping places was their top priority, CO4. And in terms of youth council, their priority was skills and education, CO18. We will now look at how we can respond to this feedback in our annual delivery plan and look at key actions for implementation. However, I don't want to dwell on this plan or say too much more, as we all know that if the local government reorganisation is to happen, then it will soon become redundant. For now, we need a plan, and I'm happy to propose this to Council.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Asher. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor King.
Yeah, Chairman, it wasn't really to say anything but about the report, but I did point this out at scrutiny, and that photograph is upside down. Thanks very much.
Chairman, can I just invite Councillor King? I'll buy you lunch over in Lutterworth. Take a look at it. That's the cockpit. It's not upside down, and we told you this is another meeting. So if I'm right, you can buy lunch.
Councillor Payne.
I'll take your word for it, Councillor Knoll. I'll check the next time I drive, but it does look a very strange. It certainly doesn't look quite right to me. Thank you.
Never mind the upside down plane. I would have liked to have seen in there, instead of harbour, the words the harbour district. But Barbara Johnson isn't here, so somebody has to say there are some spelling mistakes in here. And just as I'm looking on page 386, it says an out planet. At its heart, it's our planet, and there are a couple of others in there. So just to note, but very good document.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Knoll.
Well, just to come back and say thank you, Councillor Page, for your comment. I would just like, on a serious note, to say that I'm sure Council would like to send its best wishes to Councillor Barbara Johnson. She's had a fall, and she's actually broken bones in the base of her skull. So she says she's sorry not to be here tonight. She said she's really going to miss it. She was looking forward to it. But they've told her that she needs to rest a little while to actually get herself sorted. So she's had a really nasty fall.
Give her our best wishes.
Thank you, Councillor Knowles. Council is making decisions on this report, and these have been proposed and seconded. Those in favour, please raise their arm. That's carried. That's carried. Okay. We'll move on to item 12. Returning Officer Recommendations, Community Governance Review, Moseley. Please note there is an additional appendix with amendments to the recommendations that were shared earlier today, and hard copies have been tabled. I invite Councillor Knowles to present the report to Council on Councillor Beadle's behalf.
Thank you, Chair. I think Lizzie's just making sure everyone has copy. Hopefully I've got the latest here. Not sure. Okay, Chairman, if I may, while the papers are being passed around, I'm happy to introduce this report. At our meeting in February 2024, Council agreed to undertake a community governance review to create a parish council of Moseley. This was undertaken following a request from Moseley Parish Council at its annual Moseley Parish at its annual meeting in 2023. The first period of consultation ended in May 2024, and responses were included in the 9th of December report to Council. A further period of consultation closed on the 17th of February this year. At the point of writing, we have had no further correspondence, but we did say we would report any further responses received prior to the closing date of tonight's meeting. But we have had some further correspondence with 2 letters in support of the parish and 2 letters raising concerns. These have been circulated today. The community support is therefore not clear. I'm suggesting that we do not agree to establishment of a parish council of Moseley tonight, and we ask officers to go back to the parish meeting and discuss the issues that have been raised further with them and consider what options may be appropriate as the next step. I therefore propose an altered recommendation of 1. Council notes the 4 responses that have been received during the period of the consultation for the establishment of Moseley Parish Council. 2. In light of the consultation responses, not to agree to the establishment of a parish council of Moseley at this time. And 3. To ask officers to discuss with the parish meeting of Moseley the issues that have been raised and seek their consideration of a proposed way forward, with a further report brought back to the full council if appropriate. With that, Chairman, I move.
Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Gray. Sorry, Councillor Bacon, did you want to speak?
No, he's a second.
Oh, you're seconding. Okay. Right. Okay. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Councillor Grave beat to the punch there. Yeah, we support these amended recommendations. Having spoken to Councillor Bilby, who's left the room, he is the chair of Moseley Parish meetings, as you know, and he is also fully supportive of the amended recommendations. So we're happy to support them. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Knowles, do you wish to come back?
No,
Okay then. Council is making decisions on this report and these have been proposed and seconded. Those in favour, please raise your arm. That's carried. Thank you. Item 13. We now move to the item 13 on the agenda page 411. Amendment to the Constitution Planning Committee voting arrangements. I invite Councillor Knowles to present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. As we all know, amending the Constitution requires the approval of Council, and this is a straightforward request for a change. Following discussions at both Planning Committee and Constitutional Review Committee, an amendment has been proposed to the Constitution to require a recorded vote to be taken for the proposing and seconding of a proposal for a planning application at Planning Committee. It is proposed that this procedure would apply to all planning reports being considered by the Planning Committee from the next meeting. I therefore wish to propose the recommendation, but with an amendment, that this is reviewed by a Constitutional Review Committee in 12 months' time to consider whether the arrangements have been effective and whether any further constitutional amendments are necessary. Therefore, the new recommendations are as follows. 1, to approve the amendment of the Constitution to require a recorded vote to be taken following the proposed and seconding of a proposal concerning an application for development permission at the Planning Committee. This procedure would apply to all planning reports being considered by the Planning Committee and will apply from the next meeting of the Planning Committee. 2, to ask the Constitutional Review Committee to review the procedure in 12 months' time and consider if any further changes are required to the Constitution. And 3, to delegate authority to the monitoring officer to determine the final wording for the amendments required to introduce the change in consultation with the chairs of the Planning and Constitutional Review Committee. I formally move that, Chairman.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor King?
Yeah, well, please, Councillor Nelson, I'm actually very happy if he wants to accept my seconding of this amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Wellman?
Yeah, thank you very much. As members know, I originally raised this, I think it was last year at a planning committee, and put this forward at a full council as well for an amendment to the constitution. So I'm absolutely delighted to see this come forwards. Decisions at planning committee can be often quite emotive, and they can have a huge direct impact on people's lives. And this is the one committee that has or attracts a significant public interest in it. And this proposed change is important for two reasons. And firstly, because in the past we've had confusion about votes and members seemingly changing their vote halfway through, and that's clearly not acceptable. And also because this is an improvement to accountability. I think it should be the right thing that members are accountable for the way they vote, and the members of the public should be able to see how we each vote on planning committee. So it's a good thing. Very happy to support. Very glad it's come forward. And thank you very much.
Councillor James, I believe you want to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think actually this happened when I was in the driving seat when Councillor Borough was away, but I remember this happening on planning, which I agreed to. It was over some of the new prison issues. I don't actually think at the end of it achieved anything, but it was fine by me to do that. And I support it. So, yeah, okay, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Knowles, do you wish to come back on anything?
Not really, Chair.
Okay. Council is making a decision on this report. These have been proposed and seconded. Those in favour, please raise your arm. That's carried. Okay. Item 14. We will now receive a report from the leader, Part 4, Section 1, Paragraph 4.1.15.8 of the Council Procedure Rules, entitles members to ask questions of the leader on the report once it has been presented. If you wish to ask a question of the leader about something in his report, when he finishes, please indicate this to me clearly by raising your hand. The report was sent out earlier today and hard copies have been tabled. Councillor Knowles, would you like to introduce the report?
Yeah, I would, Chairman. I'd just like to say that since sending out the report, I'm aware that obviously I'd have the opportunity to add bits and pieces to this, and I intend to do that this evening to share some other bits and pieces with our colleagues. I'm delighted that we've held our first ever youth council meeting, and great to hear that it was extremely well supported by the young people of our district. My thanks go to Councillor Anderson and to Councillor Woodywis for the work they've done with our community engagement teams to bring this to fruition. We said from the start we wanted to hear the voice of young people, and we've delivered on that promise. I am told the quality of the discussion was really impressive, and they were really clear on what their priorities are, including more activities for young people, and wanted to find a way to advertise youth employment opportunities. As such, I've asked our economic development team to see if there is any way we can use our UK SPF funds for 25-26 to support these priorities in any way. Hopefully all members have seen that I've added an item to the agenda tonight to firstly share the very latest information on devolution and local government reorganisation, and secondly to allow all members to have their say on the initial plans put together by district and borough councils and Rutland County Council. Regrettably, the opposition are seemingly circulating information that this is the Lib Dems, Labour and Greens' fault, and that we support the potential ending of Harbour District Council. Well, as usual, certain members of the party opposite haven't been listening or reading the detail. I've put out numerous times, along with fellow leaders, that we do not think the current two-tier system is broken, and that Harbour District Council is certainly not broken. And we are only progressing a unitary option due to the national government sending all leaders a letter asking them to, simply put, I'm saying to all councillors, you have no choice. It's really time, I think, that certain members of the opposition stop being nasty. Our residents deserve better, and hopefully we can have a sensible debate shortly. As we've been blamed for the local government reorganisation, I assume the flooding was our fault too. Well, it probably soon will be on social media if certain members have their way. We will not forget the devastation that this has caused the residents' lives in our district. On this occasion, due to the scale of the issues, we've included in our budget a number of measures to help our residents, including a £500 payment to help contribute towards their costs, a budget to support any localised work that may be needed, and for the first time ever, a climate impact officer post to support our emergency management work. This post will be supporting the agencies to keep focused on the problem areas and issues, as well as working with parishes, community groups and volunteers. We are shifting the dial from just being reactive to now being proactive, which I believe is what our residents want. We don't have to do this, but we are doing it because it is the right thing to do for our residents. I hope the party opposite will support this. New draft local plan. It would not be right if I didn't mention the brilliant work of our officers to get our draft local plan to Cabinet last week. A significant amount of work has gone into the plan against the backdrop of challenges. The plan will now be considered by Council on Monday, March the 3rd, and I want to place on record my thanks to David and Tess and the team for the tireless hours of effort and work they put into it. I hope the party opposite will not only thank our staff, but thank the coalition to do what they couldn't do and get the statement of common ground signed, which, as we know, by doing so allowed us to progress the plan under the previous NPPF and has saved the district having an extra 2,000 houses in the plan period. Councillor King, for example, seemingly commented it's only 95 houses a year. Well, I'm pretty sure our residents don't want an extra 95 houses a year, or maybe he's happy to have them in Kibworth. Councillor King also commented on the fact that 3 members of the Cabinet were not present at the meeting, and then numbers of social media posts appeared. The meeting was more than quorate, and for the benefit of our residents, we held the meeting even though we had members on holiday, which had been booked 12 months ago, and attending an important family celebration. Again, Chairman, unnecessary and nasty comments. Finally, whilst I'm on the subject of the local plan, I will mention our confidential all-member briefing where, once again, and for the 3rd time, I think the confidential information was shared outside the council within minutes of the meeting. I really am at a loss to understand why an elected member feels he or she has to share confidential information against all the advice from officers, and when it is going to be published 4 days later. The party opposite wonder why we are reluctant to share information before we have to. Well, this is the reason. It's called trust and security. Well, I have to tell you, we are seeking specialist legal advice, and if intellectual property laws have been broken, then I will be asking that the information be shared with the police, and the police to be asked to consider what action they can take. I want to emphasise that we are looking to get the police involved if the action is appropriate. I'd also like to take the opportunity to express my thanks to Councillor Hallam for the years of public service he put in as a ward member in Glen. He was a gentleman, he was respectful, and I'm sure he will be a big loss to the party opposite. I will say, though, that the behaviour of certain members of the opposition regarding the by-election have been disrespectful and frankly quite embarrassing. Seemingly to publicly indicate the coalition influenced the date of the by-election and stating that the chief executive was denying democracy, etc., when all legal conditions were complied with and when all party leaders were made aware of the reasons for choosing the date is ridiculous and shameful. Of course, the chief executive will not and should not get drawn into this, but an apology should be made here tonight by you, Councillor King, the administration and the chief executive, as it was on your social media feed and attributed to you. I've added plenty of context to my report, but enough is enough. This behaviour has to stop. So to draw this to an end, to all of this nonsense, I ask now that the Leader of the Opposition joins me and the other party leaders in formally signing up to the Debate Not Hate campaign with a pledge to be respectful. You can see the posters around the building and this room. Of course, differing opinions are fine, and we all understand that, but all make things personal and messaging in a way that is hateful is not acceptable. I will be organising a formal signing of that pledge next Monday at 6 p.m. before extraordinary council to consider the local plan. On behalf of your party and its members, will you join me, Councillor Bateman, in signing it? And I would also like to say, with respect to the constant leaking that is going on, I think that Councillor James summed it up to me earlier this afternoon when we were chatting. He said maybe we need to adopt another policy and call it speak, not leak. Because maybe we should talk to each other instead of deciding that we want to leak things. It's unnecessary and it does not befit this council, Chairman.
Councillor Bateman, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to thank the leader for his report. I'll deal with what's on the pages. I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment on the comments made in relation to certain members of my group who may do things outside of this chamber. That's a matter for them to comment on. However, I would say that I will be quite happy to sign the hate not debate, debate not hate. Get it the right way around. Cut that and start again. Yeah, I'd be happy to sign that pledge. I totally agree with you. It's politics. It should be politics, not personal. And, you know, at the end of the day, we represent different parties, but we should be respectful of each other's position as far as I'm concerned, whether it's in the chamber, whether it's outside in an election campaign or wherever it may be. I do thank you for your report. I'm glad to see the council, the youth councils up and running. That's very good. You'll discuss the local government reorganisation in a while after this, and we'll see where we're going with that. With regards to flooding, I'd just be interested to ask when you expect the Climate Impact Officer post to be staffed, and what exactly the terms of reference will be for that person in relation to what they're going to be doing in relation to flood prevention and trying to bring some resolution to those residents who are unfortunate enough to suffer flooding, especially with the way the weather is progressing over the future. In relation to the new draft local plan, yes, thank you. We'll discuss that next week at the next council meeting, I'm sure, in full. And finally, all I'd say is in relation to your thanks to Councillor Hallam, I'll pass those thanks on. I don't know if he'll be listening, but he was, yes, a very effective member of this group from the time I was elected in 2016. He will be missed. And as an aside, it's bizarre, but as his last parting words to me were, there won't be a Hallam on the ballot paper for the first time in 40 years. So that's quite a testament really to the skill and dedication that him and his father, I believe, brought before him. Other than that, Leader, I've got nothing else to add. I'm not going to be drawn on your comments regarding what's gone on outside of this chamber. That's a matter for the member concerned if they wish to respond. Thank you.
Councillor Graves, I think you wanted to.
Yes, and as I understand it, this is the time to put questions to the leader on the report, and I'll start immediately with the question so members don't think I'm toddling off on some sort of speech. Does the leader feel that 3 cabinet members with children who 2 of which I know had pre-booked holidays, I booked mine a year ago, does the leader not think it's sinister, particularly for me, to see myself as a sinister black silhouette figure with my name underneath it on social media? Councillor Bateman, apparently from Harborough Conservatives. Now, I treat that as being all of the members opposite, the Harborough Council Conservatives. I really think you've all crossed the line on this one. It's sinister and it's nasty. You know what Theresa May said. I was a member of your party when she said it. She called you the nasty party. Do you want to be known as the nasty group? You have crossed the line. You're getting too personal on too frequent basis. So I've asked the question and I'm explaining the basis of the question. Councillor Bateman, you know, in your career as an officer, you don't get personal if you are arresting people because they'll have a go at you. I just think it's completely unnecessary. So my question to the leader is, do you feel like I do that it was sinister and it crossed the line?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Graves, I understand, I don't do social media, but I understand it was the Harbour Conservative Association, HCA, that put out that post with the silhouettes. So I have to rebut the fact that it's not this group, as the Harbour District Council Conservative group, that endorsed or had anything to do with that particular post. Thank you.
I note that, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Dan, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your leader's report, Councillor Knowles. This may not be a question for now, but I'm just reading about the flooding in the district and the new draft local plan and how disappointing it is to have 475 houses stuck in the middle of the worst flooding we have ever seen. And that's been going on for years when there's other areas in the district and in Broughton Astley that could have been used. I just find it totally unacceptable. And thank you very much for your comments on James Allen. I echo it. Thank you for that.
Councillor Salford.
I was just wondering, Councillor Knowles, whether we could review the rules regarding the confidentiality, whether we could make stricter rules on that, because it is you know, wrong to break it, and the rules could be looked at scrutiny or wherever you want them to make it a bit more stricter, so people will educate themselves that they need to keep confidentiality, as if they were working for a company, they would have to keep confidentiality.
Councillor King.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Okay, so first of all, what I wanted to say was welcome the leader's report and his comments about the payments towards residents who've had problems with flooding. It's very welcome given the government's failure to release national funding. You know, it's problematic. Obviously, his other comments about the LGR and the Youth Council. Also welcome his comments about Councillor Hallam. As you will know, and some of the members here will know, Councillor Hallam was the council deputy leader when I was leader, and actually that was during a period of time which was actually quite turbulent for this council, along with every local authority at the time, as we had to experience the pandemic in March 2020, so nearly 5 years ago to the day. And actually, Councillor Hallam was a very supportive and very important part of the administration's response to our residents and communities over that period of time. So yes, it's very sad that he decided to retire from the council at very short notice, but wish him all the best for whatever else he's doing next. In regards to the comments he made, Councillor Knowles, about me, well, first of all, I have signed originally the Debate Not Hate thing previously. I did sign that, you may recall. I'm a great believer in that. So first of all, to deal with the thing that was put out about the non-attendance of 3 cabinet members at the special cabinet last week, as far as I can see, that's a factual statement. They weren't there. Didn't say why they weren't there. Didn't know what. Nobody knows why they weren't there. They've now said why they weren't there, but that wasn't, by the call, mentioned at the meeting. But even so, it's just a factual statement. They said they weren't there, and that's a fact. You can't deny facts. That is what it is. I didn't create that graphic, so I can't comment about the and it's the Harbour Conservative. That particular social media isn't my particular. I don't control that. In respect of the comment that was made about the by-election for Great Glen, well, I'm quite happy to apologise to the Chief Executive publicly. I didn't mean to embarrass him or cause him any distress. I hope you will accept that in the spirit it's made. But also at the time, I felt there was a point that needed to be made about it was, you know, obviously at the maximum of the legally permitted period. And it is, you know, so there were some issues with that, but I accept that, you know, it wasn't intentional. And as I said, I'm quite willing to give that apology in front of the council and obviously on the record for all and sundry. So that's all I want to say about that. In respect of the other issues, well, I can't answer any of that because I haven't done any of that. So, and in fact, actually, I wasn't on the last briefing. I wasn't very well, so I didn't actually attend that anyway. So, as the record will show. Thanks very much.
Councillor Bannister.
Thank you, Leader, for your report. Particular, I welcome the comments you make regarding the assistance for those that have been affected by flooding within the district. We'd like to obviously have more than that can be allocated. You will, of course, appreciate the distress that is suffered by those who have their homes flooded. Got two questions. One is in relation to your comments with regard to a potential police investigation with regard to intellectual property that might have been infringed. If it is the case that during the investigation into any alleged breach that has occurred of the private and confidential information, that there are weaknesses within this council's own IT system that cannot advance any further inquiries or investigation, will you be able to give a commitment that any flaws that seem to lead this into a dead end and we can't get any proper answers, they will be addressed? And you will report back to us in the council with regard to those flaws in our existing IT system. Second question is in relation to your extremely kind comments about our colleague, former councillor Hallam. I reference and echo what Councillor King has said about Councillor Hallam. I would like to ask you whether you would think it appropriate to have a discussion with the Chief Executive and indeed your Cabinet colleagues to revive something that this council has not done, certainly in my time here, and that is to bestow an honorary alderman with regard to Councillor Hallam, or indeed any other deserving former councillor colleague. Is he willing to have that conversation with the Chief Executive and Cabinet colleagues to revive that? Thank you.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just be really quick on the leak allegations. I think, you know, we can get very personal on that. But the worst thing about it is if we do get a leak, we're all suspects and we all get investigated. I think that's a bit uncomfortable. I don't want to say any more about that. I would like to say something about Councillor Hallam. I didn't get to know Councillor Hallam too well, but I knew his father really well. And I can remember his father when I was an officer, and a really good, solid councillor. He was very good. And I'm sure that James followed in his footsteps. But my point I want to come to is that I'm interested to see and pleased to see in the leader's report that there is an officer being appointed. We call it a climate impact officer. I would just make a comment on that. If we think all this flooding problem is all to do with climate, I'll put my neck on the line and say that's completely wrong. It's far more complex than climate. So I would be interested to see the job description for that post and whether a climate impact officer is the right title, Chairman.
Anyone else wish to speak? Yes. Councillor Mark.
Thank you. As ward councillor for Glen Ward, I would also like to thank the former councillor Hallam for his support to me as co-councillor. And I did have the pleasure of meeting his father, Mr. Hallam, although not in a councillor role. So it was nice to meet him as well. And yeah, just want to put my thanks in as well. Thank you.
Okay. If there's nobody else, then Councillor Knowles, would you like to come back? Yes.
Well, what I will say, starting off right at the start of this, is that gave me no pleasure tonight to read that speech, because that's the worst speech any leader can have to read. And we've got things like that going on. I'm very grateful to Councillor King. I'll take it that his comment of he apologises to the Chief Executive and all in sundry to mean that he's apologising to the administration as well. So I thank him for that. The climate officer post, yeah, I think if we can get some details and share that with members, I would welcome that. I think it's important that members have a copy of the job description and members can see, because I think it is a title which is more or less a sort of a coordinating role. The job description will be very useful. It is something that can draw together all sorts of things that are going on. So I think it is quite important that we actually we look at that and we get something sorted. Councillor Graves asked me about whether I saw it as being sinister. I think what I would say is I think it's extremely sad. When we're told that you'd already signed the debate not hate, well, that makes it even sadder for me, really. And I hope that this time when the leaders all sign it, we can actually make sure that members do see the importance of that. Councillor Dan talked about the flooding and about Councillor Hallam. Well, as far as Councillor Hallam is concerned, I will say one thing, and I won't keep repeating it. I also knew his dad, as you did, and he was a really nice guy, and James was exactly the same. Really nice, very nice man. And, you know, we pass on our best wishes to him. As far as the flooding is concerned, this climate input officer, coordinator, whatever we're going to end up calling the official title, will have a really serious and very important role to play in that, to sort of coordinate, not just here in Harbour as a council, but other authorities and other partners who can input to assist us in actually trying to better serve the community to try and stop these sort of problems. So I think that's quite important. Councillor Sarfas raised a very important point about confidentiality, and I thank you for that. I'm all in favour of looking at anything that will improve the confidentiality, but I suppose you have to ask yourself the $64,000 question: why would the person who leaked it want to leak it in the first place? Because it's more or less a case of, well, I've decided to leak it, so I'm going to do it. And I think that's the starting point. But I do agree with you. We need to look at that and find out if there are other areas that we can do with that. As far as the question that you raised, Councillor Bannister, on intellectual property and weaknesses in the IT system, the starting point for me is to hope that we can get the correct advice from our legal people that will lead us onto a route that we can finally do something about this, and we can supply them with the information that we have in the council, and then it will be a matter for us to decide whether or not to proceed. If we've got sufficient evidence, then obviously I would very much want it, and I'm sure all members would want it putting into the hands of the police, because it's got to stop. It's then in the hands of the police whether they would want to proceed, but the starting point has to be looking at whether or not we're in a sufficiently strong position to actually do that. Weaknesses in the IT system, again, absolutely agree with you. You know, we should never be comfortable and accept that everything is just the best it can be. I'm sure our officers, well, I know our officers are actually looking at that, and we will consider what we can do to make any improvements. And those improvements will, to a degree, certainly be shared with members to tell you what we're doing, certainly time-wise, though they might be a bit reluctant to share exactly what the improvements are they've put in case the person who decided to leak it tries it again and knows some of the trapdoors to avoid. So we'll wait and see what the officers come back with on that one. I think that about sums it all up, to be honest with you, Chairman. So I'm happy to leave it at that. Thank you.
As we're approaching the 3-hour cut-off, we will need to vote on whether to extend the meeting or to adjourn and continue business at a later date. I'm proposing that we continue the meeting until 10 o'clock to enable, if necessary, to enable us to conclude our business.
Chair, if I could just have a 15-minute break. Quite a heavy agenda or something.
Can we vote on the extension first and then we'll take a recess?
Can we have a seconder then for that? Councillor Asher, okay, right. Can we vote on that, please? All those in favour?
Those against.
Those against? Any abstentions?
Any abstentions?
Yeah. That's carried then, okay. Carry on. Now we have.
Yeah.
So we'll make it a 10-minute break. Back at 9 o'clock. Please, thank you. Yes. Right. We might now make a start on item 15. Devolution and the government's proposed local government reorganisation. Please note that because of the nature of this item, the usual rules of debate will not apply. To ensure everyone can fully participate, I'm proposing that within reason, councillors may be permitted to speak more than once at my discretion in response to the leader's statement. I would, however, ask that members express their views concisely. I invite Councillor Knowles to present a verbal update, but if he wishes to sit down, because I know he's got a lot to say, I think on this occasion we'll let him sit down.
I'm glad you suspended standing orders, actually, Chairman. We can have sitting orders. Don't worry, Rosie, I'll read it quickly. Okay, I'm bringing this tonight as I feel strongly that members should be fully informed, feel engaged and can contribute to the future of Harbour District and local government reorganisation in Leicestershire. Let me be clear from the outset, and I can be quoted on social media with this. In my view, the two-tier system of local government is not broken and it does not need fixing. Harbour District Council is not broken and it certainly doesn't need fixing. We are being forced into changes by invitation from central government. Doing nothing risks change being forced upon us. I think our residents want us to shape any change and not have it done to us. As such, I have been meeting with other leaders across Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland to discuss what change might look like, and I assume everyone has seen the media activity over the last few days, which is starting to shape different positions on what local government reorganisation should look like. I've asked the Chairman to waive standing orders tonight so that all members can share their views with me as I look to carry forward and represent the majority of members' wishes. To be clear, I have had it confirmed by the monitoring officer that any initial submission to government, which will be non-binding on this authority, is an executive decision and as such rests with me as leader and with the Cabinet. I also want to be clear that the submission in March is a checkpoint only. With government, it is not a formal part of the process. It is for the government to be assured that progress is being made. However, I do want to be fully informed of your views as I continue to liaise with other leaders ahead of the interim plan submission on March the 21st. I fully expect we will be engaging in scrutiny and have a vote at full council prior to the final submission in November, but that is a long way off yet. To be clear on what is being expected of us, proposals must seek to achieve single-tier local government, be one of the right size to achieve efficiencies, improve capacity and withstand financial shocks. Population of 500,000 or more is being indicated. Prioritise delivery of high quality and sustainable public services, meet local needs and be informed by local views. Support devolution, enable stronger community engagement and neighbourhood empowerment. So what is the latest update? Leicestershire County Council announced last Thursday, following its council meeting on Wednesday, that it is continuing to draw up a plan to create one council for Leicestershire, excluding Rutland and Leicester City. Despite the district and borough councils in Leicestershire and Rutland County Council's attempts to fully engage with the County Council, they have not fully engaged with us on this plan. They have not shared their detailed thinking with us in advance of announcing it, and are now pushing forward with their proposal for a single unitary authority across Leicestershire. We feel that their approach for a single unitary would be too cumbersome, too remote from our communities and inaccessible for our residents in need. As a result, the County Council publishing their unilateral intentions, we have had to respond, and as such on Friday, all districts and boroughs, along with Rutland, issued a statement, and you'll have seen that statement in the press, and it has been circulated, it is on our website. It is stated that our goal is to support devolution for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland and deliver the best outcome for residents, councillors and staff. Devolution would be in the form of a mayoral combined strategic authority for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, covering a population of approximately 1.2 million residents. In terms of local government reorganisation, I must reiterate that we absolutely do not think this current system is broken, and Harborough certainly isn't. But on that basis, the government want to end the current two-tier system. There is a very clear case for establishing 3 balanced unitary councils across the area. The county council's model proposes a county unitary of broadly 800,000 people, a city council of broadly 400,000 people, and Rutland of broadly 40,000. As mentioned earlier, this is completely unbalanced. Our initial preference is for the creation of 2 new unitary councils to serve the north of Leicestershire and Rutland, and that would combine North West Leicestershire, Charnwood, Melton and Rutland County Council. The south of Leicestershire would be Blaby, Hinckley and Bosworth, Oby and Wigston and Harborough. The city of Leicester would remain on its current boundaries. Each of the 3 unitaries will be broadly 400,000 in population, balanced, closer to the communities, yet still large enough to deliver efficiencies and end the two-tier system the government so desperately wants to end. The detailed work to support this is being developed ahead of the initial proposal being submitted, but further work is needed on it ahead of March the 21st, deadline for initial submission to the government. I do not propose to bring this to scrutiny in advance of March submission, as this is merely a checkpoint with the government. It is also being worked on because it is non-binding and because of the timelines being so short. However, I am happy and determined to bring it to scrutiny post-submission, but suggest we wait until we receive the initial feedback from MHCLG before we do that. That's my points that I want to put forward, and I'm happy to take any comments that people may have, if I may. And I'd also like to try and get some clarification from the dual hatters that we've got on the council as to whether or not they're supporting the county council's donuts or whether they're supporting the district council situation, because I think that's important that we know that as well, Chairman.
Councillor Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and I'd like to thank Councillor Knowles for your verbal update. It is a great shame that I wasn't written down. I do understand the pressures of time, but even so, it would have been extremely helpful for all members to see that in writing, as well as members of the public, as that could have been published on the website. However, and you just asked a question. So yes, I'm a dual hatter, and it's on the record what I said last week at a council meeting. A county, but I'm not here today as a county councillor. I'm here as a district councillor, and so that's very clear. And what I said was there's an absence, which there was at the time, of any other proposal, which that was the case. So I did support the cabinet county as a county councillor. So, but however, what I wanted to suggest, what I wanted to move is a motion without notice, Chair, if I may, and if I could just read it out. That plans or proposals for or agreements to the evolution of local government reorganisation made on behalf of Harborough District Council by the Leader and Cabinet shall be subject to debate by and a vote for Council before submission to the Government. Special council meetings will be scheduled in advance of submission dates at appropriate points prior to the March and November submission dates in anticipation of these votes. In order to inform these meetings, the Leader and Cabinet must conduct a series of public engagement events to hear the views of Harborough District residents. Now, those who've got, folks say, sharper eyes on this will understand that's actually a motion that I've ripped from the Rutland County Council website from when they had their meeting a couple of weeks ago, when their leader said something very similar to you, Councillor Knowles, about the decision is reserved to the
Point of order,
leader.
Chairman. Sorry to interrupt, but a point of order. May I make it? Sorry to interrupt you, Councillor King, but rather than this going along any further, Chairman and Legal Officer, I don't believe that type of motion falls within the constitutional clauses. There are a very limited number of motions without notice, and I don't believe a common motion like that falls within the remit. Thank you.
The officer is just checking.
May I also add, Chairman, this was specifically checked as being function for the Leader and the Cabinet. So it is not something, as far as I'm concerned, that we should be trying to move votes on tonight just to commandeer the discussion on it, which is what I think is happening. And I think that's it's absolutely unnecessary. I think we've come in good faith to give a verbal update. It is clearly within the responsibility of the leader and the cabinet, and you know, it is not really appropriate to be doing that.
Chairman, am I able to continue?
Just a minute.
Okay, thank you.
We are absolutely committed to coming back for a vote on this, but now is not the time. And the officers, this has been brought in this way to comply with the situations we've been told it exists.
Let's see what the officers come back with. Sorry, that can't be moved down.
Could I have an explanation of that, please? On the record, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So under paragraph 4.1.60 of the Constitution, motions without notice, it outlines there what motions can be moved without notice. And the motion that you put forward doesn't fall under any of the categories that are outlined in that section.
Noted, thank you. So as I was speaking, Chair, if I could just continue then. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Chair. Okay, so you've clarified that point. Thanks very much for that. Irrespective of that, I note what the leaders said. However, that's in his gift. That doesn't mean it's guaranteed. That means, despite what you or your colleagues sat here are thinking, well, he's going to listen to me, isn't he? He's going to, because he's our group leader. Well, he might do and he might not. Might not take your views on board, might not take our views on board, whatever they may be, because we don't actually know what the proposal is at the moment, because we haven't actually seen anything. So it's kind of difficult to, and you might do scrutiny and, you know, so.
Point of order, Chairman, that's challenging my word, and I find that totally unacceptable.
No, we want.
That he's actually bringing my word and my guarantee.
Well, we want
into question. It's inappropriate and unnecessary.
Can we just
Well,
stop,
if I may, Chair,
just finish your piece?
Well, I was just going to say, what I'd like is some certainty, which is why I drafted the motion without notice, because I figured that actually if we did that, that would give it a guarantee, irrespective of whatever the behest of the cabinet and leader was. I'm not disputing your word, Councillor Knowles. I'm just saying that would then give us a proper mandate that would be to be required. But you know, if the leader wants to put it in writing what he said and send that to all members, so I'm very happy to receive that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Councillor Knowles.
Yeah, Chairman, I have to come back on this. When the leader of this council stands up and gives their word on something in the council chamber, that to me means something. It may not mean something to other people, but it means something to me. My word is my bond, and I don't give it lightly. And I really feel quite strongly about Councillor King's comments there, and I think he should retract them. And I'm asking him to formally do so, because it's just the latest thing in a line that we're getting, and this is absolutely persistent. That's coming. I've given my word. I've given the guarantee. I've told him we'll bring it back, and he's then turned around and said, "Well, he might not listen. He might not want." He might not have listened when he was leader, but I certainly will.
Okay, right. Councillor Wellbank, we'll move on to you.
Yes, thank you. I just want to come back to the supplementary question that I asked earlier on, if that's okay, and that is about the joint statement from the districts last week, and there was in that statement some talk about consulting our communities. I'd be grateful if you, Councillor Knowles, would say what that looks like. That'd be helpful. Also, the vote that you talk about of all members, will that be before the March submission date or after? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, no, the vote will be afterwards. As I said, the first submission is a checkpoint, not a formal part of the process that we've had verified today. So the March is not a deadline for putting a vote in or anything. As it stands at the moment, it is down to myself as leader and the executive. However, as I've said, and I guarantee we will be coming back, because this is not something just for one member or one person. Ultimately, this needs a vote and the input of everybody as to where we go with this. As far as the public consultation is concerned, I'd just like to see whether I can just get some comment on where we are with that, because that's something that's been updated even today, and I've not been made party to it yet as to where we are with it, but it's certainly something that is happening. I wonder whether the chief executive might be able to help me out with that one.
Yeah, happy to update from today's discussions. There will be web pages that are going live on all councils' websites by the end of the week, and that will include a link to a short survey asking for feedback and opinions on the proposal that Councillor Knowles leader has just outlined. And we'll obviously make reference to that in the media through press releases so that people can find their way and navigate to those sites. And that information will be analysed. That will be an early start in terms of the consultation. There will be more detailed consultation that will follow probably later in the summer once we've had feedback on the initial plan from MHCLG. So there'll be an early start and then there'll be more details to follow later. Councillor Page.
Thank you, Chairman. And I thank the leader for his report, and our chief executive just now for the update. And it is quite sad that I didn't know this before. It would have saved me an awful lot of time writing a speech and making points. The leader said the system may not be broken. Maybe the system isn't broken. And I'm quite proud to have served in a local authority 26 years. But having said that, we are now in a changing world with a changing government, and there will be devolution on the cards. And I think it is that we all need to be part of putting our business plans in rather than being in the tent, as they say, than outside the tent. I keep a total open mind on the matter because I do not know what will happen, but I would like to see what is going to be put in front of us before I make a comment. However, I'm really, really pleased that the chief executive has just said that the public will be involved, because when I was reading our corporate plan, and which is a strategic document, but it sets out points of our priorities and our ambition. And it very much says it's setting out the ambitions for the future of the district. And then it says in there, we will always look to involve you in decisions that affect your life. And a unitary will affect the life of our residents. It will affect us as councillors if it goes ahead. 300 odd councillors will be reduced to 110, and we'll be scrambling for a seat in the new authority. I don't know what will happen, but one of the things I do know, it is regardless what we decide, what the government decide, we need to ask the people out there what they think. And therefore, the motion and everything is now irrelevant, because we had assurance that our residents will be told, and I hope that communication is effective. And I'm just a little bit sad that we weren't told prior to this, because it would have saved us an awful lot of debate and work, and I could have gone to the pub for my supper. Thank you, Lee.
Councillor Bannister.
Thank you for the verbal update, Councillor Knowles. I disagree with you in terms of being a fan of two-tier local authorities. I've always been a fan of a one-stop shop for the residents of Leicestershire. And I think we've all had experiences of individual residents coming to us to say, I've got this problem, only for us to say, well, that's a county problem, or that's a district problem. I think it is far better that we do have a one-stop shop for the residents in our communities. Having said that, the size and shape of such an authority is something I have an open mind about. At the moment, there's only one plan that has been published and is out for public engagement. That is the county plan. I look forward to the size and shape and really the detail of what it lies behind the North-South unitary authorities. But I think my biggest concern in all this, and I know you've made references to the county, you haven't made a reference to what the city mayor may be up to. And my concerns about this, I could be entirely wrong, but I suspect the city mayor is after two things in this local government review. One is more money for the city, and two, more land so he can build houses. And that means an encroachment of the boundaries of the city. That encroachment may well come into parts of Harbour District Council. So as far as the conversations you may or may not be having with the county, I would appreciate some more information about conversations that you may or may not be having with the city mayor and what dangers you see with regard to any extension of boundaries into your proposed southern unitary authority that you would hope Harbour can be part of. These are concerns. We don't have the information at this stage. I can only keep an open mind about things, but at this moment in time, there's just one plan that's out there for that public engagement. I look forward to more detail, more plans, but most of all, more answers. Thank you.
Councillor Asher.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say about the engagement, the public engagement. There was a press release that went out, I think, from all the councils, Council Knowles, was it last week? Yes. A joint statement, and it did clearly say that that all the councils would be engaging with residents. And so I don't know why people aren't aware of that, but it did actually go out last week. And I'm really pleased to hear that that will be done this week and we'll be getting the residents' views. And I'm not a fan of this. I'm not a fan. I'm worried about local people not being represented by local people. I don't like the fact that we could potentially be swallowed up, parts of it, the district swallowed up by Leicester City. And I think that we've got to put something out. And I think what has been put out is probably in my opinion at the moment, the best option. But, you know, who knows what will happen in the future, whether that will be accepted or not, but we can only try and see what happens. And as Councillor Knowles said, it would be interesting to hear other people's views on this and see what they actually really do think, instead of spouting off on social media and saying that the Lib Dems and the coalition are all for it and, you know, and going ahead and doing this when there's actually no truth in that at all. So if people want to put their cards on the table tonight, I'll be very interested to hear what they've got to say.
Councillor Graves.
Thank you. For standing up, I might as well. The concern, I've got two questions. One is about county council and what they're doing, and the second is about the $500,000 size that was mentioned in the leader's verbal comment. Taking the latter, quicker one first, I do believe there's some flexibility in the 500,000 figure, and I'll be grateful if that could be explored. Moving to the county council, because it has been mentioned by the three county councillors in the opposition that have stood up, who are double hatted. I think you three and we all need to be cognizant that the county council does not appear to have seriously considered other options. It just seems to have arrogantly thrown itself towards the one option that it wants. I don't know about public consultation. I don't know about serious options work, financial work, you know, whether it's one donut ring, whether it's 2 unitaries excluding the city, whether it's even 3 unitaries excluding the city. But it's the responsibility of members of this council and county to sit back and say, what's missing here? Yeah, there's a lack of serious options. And two of you have referred to, well, it's the only option on the table. That you've got a responsibility. We've all got a responsibility to say to county, well, just because you've only written one doesn't enable the county councils to go shrug their shoulders and go, well, it's the only one out there. You have the ability to force a second one. You've got the ability to say, we want you to go away and look at the option of 2. And Councillor Page, you hit the nail on the head. What do the people want? Are the people going to be happy with a big remote 800,000-900,000 population single council that might not be very good at listening? Or are the population going to say, yeah, I live in the south of Leicestershire, or I live in the north of Leicestershire, or I live in a rural Melton, Rutland area? The big concern I've got is that I don't think members of the county council have done their job, realised that they've got the powers to challenge the senior directors and officers who all want to keep their jobs.
Councillor Salford.
Apart from Regita Page and the work that she does from County Council for Lutterworth, County Council don't do that much for my constituency in the sense of highways, regarding highways issues. They may deal with everything else. I go back on that. But my concern is that with a Unitarian authority of having more people, that some districts of that Unitary authority will be missed. And that, if you look, is actually what's happened. That the actual place where the town is that's got the power actually get more money than other parts, and so many people, that's not very community based. So myself am against it, but my concern is that why is it that county always want to tell us what they think and what they want us to do? And as a district council, we have an option. We need to look at the options, but there's only, for county, there's only one option. They're telling everybody else, they're lecturing everybody else what we should do. Won't be lectured by county council to tell us what to do. We'll make the decisions individually and scrupulously right for for our public. We want our public to be able to speak to their councillors and not have millions and millions of people in other parts of the district that we can't represent because we can't get to them.
Councillor Gold, did I see your hand up?
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think it's been a useful debate, and I do think this was kind of sprung on us just before Christmas. I don't think it was expected that this was going to be dished up in quite the way it has been. And I think, nobody's mentioned that the first thing that happened was that the county council, the city council, and I don't know why, but Rutland signed as well to go on the fast track. And there was definitely an expectation, in my view, in that, therefore, because the city mayor was involved, that it was looking at an expanded city. And what I've heard is that there's an expectation that the administration, the members of the administration party at County Hall supported that. Now, if they didn't support that, then we need to come out and say so. The impression was certainly given that there was support for doing that fast track. I mean, we know everything would have gone with that, cancelling the elections, and then cobbling together some kind of unitary authority. Now, with the problem, not problem, but I'm pleased in a way, I don't think that the 800 is a goer. Because if you accept then that the city, as they seem to be saying now, based on last week, that the city would just stay as it is, you're going to have one authority at 800,000 and the other authority at half that. I don't think the government's going to accept that for Leicestershire as a model. It would be just so unbalanced. Whether the proposal for 2 unitaries, north and south, That seems to me to be a lot more balanced. But threats. So Councillor Bannister's highlighted the one that certainly we ward members represent that area he's talking about. And the city mayor said he doesn't think people notice a lot of difference. Oh, I don't agree with that. I really don't. I think, there's fundamental issues about the city's not got any knowledge or understanding of rural areas, the things that are important to rural communities, planning for in rural areas. Yes, we know they want to build more houses, and they would welcome the council tax bands being much higher, inheriting the income from those properties. Yes, we know all that, but they don't work with, and I'm talking about district council services, because that's what we're focused on. They don't have to work or have a relationship with parish councils, and that the priorities that they are looking and services that they deliver are just so different. So the other threat I think that we need to be very aware of as district councillors, I call it the black hole of the county council, 100 million. And we've seen over 15 years what's happened in order to continue to fund the statutory services, children, adult social care and children's services. All the other things, or many of the things the county council used to do around museums and arts and really important services, been stripped out and gone. And if we're in a unitary situation, mark my words, that will happen to all the district services that we are so proud of delivering that aren't statutory. Yes, we still have to provide waste and so on and so forth. But a lot of the other services we do in relation to community services, parks, all that would be prime target, because there isn't going to be any more money. We know that. Look at what's happened in Northamptonshire. They've got rid of the county council. One of those authorities is in difficulty a few years on. So the other threat, an expanded city, and the city wanting to milk some of our communities, the other threat is what will happen to district services that we provide in a unitary, a large county unitary model. Those are my big concerns. We're already picking up. Yes, you can do consultation and it's important. Actually, on social media, people's in our area saying we really don't want to be moved. A lot of people come to live in Scraptop and Fernby, move out of the city. They don't want to be put back in it. They quite value living where they do, and they've taken that action to move out of the city. I'm receiving a lot of emails saying that. So it's disappointing that at the end of the day, there isn't going to be an agreement. There is not going to be agreement between the county and the districts. So what's going to happen is there's going to be different proposals on the minister's desk. Its decision will be made in Westminster and not in Leicestershire. Thank you.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. We're going to face change, wherever we're going, we're going to change. We're not going to stay as we are. That's my view on it. Instinctively, in that situation, looking at what the options are, in my mind, I was thinking like west and east, east being Rutland, Melton and Harborough, because those three have got a lot in common. Now, the downside of that, and I think I've accepted that now, is it doesn't stack up population wise. So we have to look at other options. So the option that's being put on the table for discussion is the north-south, and that we would be south. And the populations, I think, do really stack up there. And I think what we've, I am well aware actually the council leader and the chief executive have put a huge effort into this over the last few weeks in discussions with the other district councils. And as we are tonight, we appear to have common ground with all of the 7. So that gives us strength to go forward. And therefore, I am supportive at the moment. There's a long way to go. And as the council leader says, it's indicative at the moment. We need to put something on the table. We need to put an outline. And this option of north-south, which is carrying the support of all the district councils that we've spoken about, is where we go at the moment. So I support the position we're in at the moment, but I do agree with everyone else that consultation with the public is so very important, and we need to feed that into the equation at the appropriate time. Thanks, Chairman.
Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself in that unusual position, seeing something brought forward by a Labour government, which I find difficult. This is not something that I agree with. I feel that they're on the verge of taking the local out of local government. And as a relatively new councillor, surrounded by many, many experienced councillors who have stood, and you've all worked tremendously hard over the years. You've worked in the communities, and you've built those community connections. So I just wonder how it would work with a much larger unitary council. Would we lose? I think Councillor Gold, you alluded to this. Would we lose this? Things like community grants, that community engagement with our towns and parish councils, would that be the same under a much, much larger unitary council? And certainly I find it hard to even imagine the proposal from county to have an 800,000 population unitary council. I can't even imagine how cumbersome that would look. Councillors are currently, like myself and many of us seated here, are still in full-time employment. And I find it hard to imagine the sort of workload that would create to have a much larger unitary council. So I can't imagine the workload. I can't imagine how, the sort of people that you're going to be asking to stand. Are they all going to be retired, self-employed, business people that can give that time, be able to actually perform that role? So I find that hard to understand as well. So I am somewhat against what my government are proposing. But I do understand, of course, that there are massive areas, be it county and of district council, where things probably could be made much better. And I just wonder if there could be a better way of reorganising the two-tier system that we have, to make it work better, to engineer it to work better. Surely that would be a better solution, not to just scrap the whole thing and throw the baby out with the bathwater. So that's where I stand. But I really do, and really give thanks to Councillor Knowles for the work that he's put in on this, meeting with the other leaders, and the proposal for a north-south unitary and a city council would be the better and more palatable solution if it was to happen. Thank you. They're my thoughts.
Councillor Rickman.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I've had a lot to do with Rutland, being chairman of the Rutland and Stamford Conservative Association. So I've attended several meetings with Alicia Kearn speaking. So just to try to help Councillor Graves with his query about smaller unitaries, our MP has had conversations with the Treasury, and they have said they will accept, the minimum they will accept is 380,000. So that figure is still there. At the end of the day, whatever we want, whatever we decide, the government has such a large majority. If they decide they actually want to do something totally different and split the
the districts into 3, 4, whatever, that's what will happen. So in a lot of ways, we've just got to wait and see what happens in the future.
Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So I just want to come back on, sorry, some additional points. So first of all, I was involved in the last round of this when I wasn't a county councillor. So what I'm kind of curious about is how we've come up with this North Leicestershire, Rutland and South Leicestershire proposal. Question immediately comes to mind, picking up what Councillor Bannister said, is, well, does the city mayor agree with your proposals or not? Because I'd say it was pretty fundamental. If the city mayor doesn't agree, well, that's essentially the equivalent of a political torpedo on this. Because, you know, I know from previous discussions with the city mayor that he's very keen to expand his territory because, as has been mentioned by others, he wants to see increased financial resilience. And those, again, who might have noticed that the other week at the city council budget meeting, they made very substantial cuts in a number of services. So that's the other thing. The other point I want to make is this was one of the very few things that actually was in the Labour government manifesto, Councillor Knight, and is with a 170 seat majority. I think it's fairly clear that whatever we may think about it, some change is going to happen, whether we want it or not. So that's but as I say, the other thing I want to say is, well, we're not here as county councillors. I'm not making a decision here on county council. I think what is disappointing, the joint statement that was put out, is this constant having a dig at the leadership of the county council by saying they refuse to meet and all this stuff. Well, I think it takes, I think there's two sides to that story. And having sat through a meeting elsewhere last week, there was a different version of those events that was put forward. And I think really it's a bit petty to be saying stuff like that when really, it would have been more helpful if there could have been constructive meetings rather than, one lot of people having one meetings and then, not being able to have meetings with the other parties. It doesn't help. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is facts of the matter are that, Liberal Democrat administrations run some very large unitary councils. I mean, I mentioned Dorset and Somerset, very large one council things. So, there is experience within your own, wider political family of some of the issues there. And just looking at the scale of you talk about trying to get it local to near to where people are. This is why I raised the query about, well, how have you come to this North Leicestershire and Rutland? Because when you do the geography on that is a very, very, very large area. From one side, extremists from one side to the other. You're talking from the outskirts of Derby to the outskirts of Peterborough. It's a super long authority, and I'm really concerned at what's being proposed here. I'm not sure it's really got the legs you seem to think it has. And without, more meat on the bones, it's really hard to know whether what you're proposing is going to meet the government's criteria or not. It doesn't meet the population criteria, which we're told is ideally 500,000. It might meet their very minimum criteria, 380,000, which I understand is likely what they're looking at. But is it financially viable? Will it be able to deliver services efficiently and effectively? There's a whole heap of detail which we haven't got any information on, which, unfortunately, before you have to make your initial submission, we're not going to have that information. And, going back to what people have said, well, why are the county bringing back their 2019 bid? Well, they've been through a process before. I wasn't a member then, but those who know what they did. They went through a process. They came up with a plan. They did look at other options. They did go to public consultation. They did look at talks to lots of other councils. Very extensive. I know just the colleague who was involved in that. And they came up with a plan. Now, rightly or wrongly, that's what, because of the failure of negotiations and discussions with other peers, I can only assume that's why they decided to make a submission, because they haven't got anything else they can put on the table. because no one else has been so far willing to have that proper discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Gare. But I will make this the last one as time is getting on for 10 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah, they were wound up a debate before, Chair. Right. First of all, I'd like to back Councillor Knight. I would think this government has more important things to worry about than this at the moment. It comes at a very bad time. It was in the manifesto, and you may, I don't know if you're going to post that on our local websites, as you've done in the past, Councillor King. Coming back to Councillor Knowles' comment that the system isn't broken, I would say at this point, administratively, and I've been on the council since 2008, it isn't broken. It works very effectively. Democratically, it was absolutely broken until May 2023, and we're coming back to that. The reason I'm able to say that is that you may well laugh about this, but you consulted us on Lutterworth East and the Relief Road, and we sent in our response. 95% of the people who responded set out where the Relief Road should go. You ignored it. You ignored us on the allotments. Indeed, 3 of our local councillors voted for us not to receive £300,000. We opposed the infill of the separation land between Lutterworth and Magna Park, and you filled it in. We warned you about the loss of one of the world's most high-tech industries next to Magna Park. That's Semilab, those of you who've sent components to Mars. It's now occupied by forklift truck drivers.
Councillor Gay, could you keep on the subject, please?
I'm coming to the subject. I'm saying that what we had up till that point is not democracy. We were not listened to. We're coming back from that, and I appreciate that. And the point I want to make is whatever comes to us, and whatever is going to be foisted on us, we must improve the ability of very local communities to have a say in it. Because at the moment, and Lutterworth are still saying, oh, it's Harborough. Well, whereas in fact, it's probably Harborough and the county. We need to build that in. And the other concern is we are the wealthiest of the districts. Okay, and we will lose considerable financial clout. I mean, the business rates from Magna Park are one part of that, a very big part of that. And I can see some hands being rubbed in other districts over there. So, thank you.
I think we'll leave it at that then. We'll close that and ask Councillor Knowles if he'd like to say anything.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got page after page after page of notes here, which I don't think is a good idea to sit and play through. I'm quite happy to show them to Councillor Bannister if they see them. This is exactly what I wanted because I've got information from all around the chamber, which is extremely useful. Some of it I agree with, some of it I certainly don't. But at least we've got the information. And, you know, I suppose what I will say is, you know, there's no magic wand to this, Chairman. You know, we don't want this to be done to us. We want to be there. We want to be taking part. And, you know, I think it was Councillor King that alluded to, well, what does Sir Peter feel? What's Sir Peter saying? Well, I'd like to know what the Minister's saying. I'd like to know what the Deputy Prime Minister's saying. Because quite frankly, we're writing to her and we're writing to the Minister. We're not even getting the courtesy of a reply back. And I suppose the irony of it is, whether there has or has not been any level of discussion, appropriate or otherwise, cooperation or otherwise with the leader at the county. What made me smile the other day was when Councillor Taylor said that she'd written to London and didn't get a reply. And I thought that must be in the same postbag as the letters that I'm sending down there. Because literally London are just not responding. Now, I hope that we're going to get the chance to sort that out. We certainly need to. It's important. And I think that, you know, we are prepared to act constructively. And if I have to give an example, and I think it's something that Harbour can be extremely proud of, we've played a very, very important part in bringing all the districts together. Those of you who know the district leaders, you know, will know that we're not just sitting there as all Liberal Democrats. We've got Conservatives, Labour, Liberal Democrats, myself as a coalition leader, all sitting there working collaboratively, working together. And I think the one thing that is absolutely critical to all of us is one word: community. Everybody's in it to make sure that we get the right, best deal for our community. Then we've got to look after our staff. They're so important to it. And everything else that goes with it. You know, there's so much we've got to do. Time is very short. I circulated the letter I had to the minister. I think I sent it to you, John, within about 20 minutes of receiving it. And when you look at the level of time that's indicated in that, nothing. Send your letter and sort of say, we need you to do 6 weeks worth of work, and we'd like the answer by tomorrow, please. You know, it's as silly as that. You know, when you've got Labour colleagues, you know, sitting there and saying they're struggling to agree with what's being done at central government, that sums it up for me. I would have thought the central government would have better things to do than to worry about this as one of its early flags that it's got to plant in the ground. They haven't. They're determined to push on with it. And all I can say to you is, all of this I'm going to put down on a sheet of paper. I'm going to make sure I share it with the chief exec, make sure it's locked down and people can see it. Quite happy, as I say, to show it to Councillor Bateman so that everybody can say, well, yes, he did write everything down we were saying, even when I didn't agree with it. So, you know, what we can do then is we can move forward. I think that's about all to say to you, Chairman, but to say thank you. Thank you to members for sharing their views with me. Thank you to our officers, and particularly thank you to the Chief Exec, who I have to say has been working extremely hard on this, as have the other Chief Exec from across the Leicestershire and Rutland. If you want one last comment to show how confusing all this is going to be, they're talking about having a Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland mayor. Now that sounds very keen, very good, obviously beneficial on the face of it, because it will mean that we can get more money into Leicestershire. If we're going to get more money, why wouldn't we? But when you extend that thought, that will mean that in the city, they'll actually have 3 mayors. They'll have more mayors than the Equine Stratford. So, I mean, it's you know, it's those sort of things. You sit there and think, well, where's the logic in that? But that's the direction we're being taken in. That's what we're being asked to work with, and we have to do it. So, thank you for that, Chairman, and thank you to colleagues.
Okay. We'll quickly move on to item 16. A report from Cabinet starts at page 25 of the main agenda pack. Members are entitled to ask questions on the content of this report. If you wish to ask a question of Cabinet about something in the report or about a decision of Cabinet taken since the last meeting of Council, please raise your hand. Again, to manage this meeting effectively, I will not at this stage allow questions which do not arise directly from the report. I invite Councillor Knowles to present the report.
Well, I move that this report be received by full council, Chairman. Actually, what it's requesting.
Have a second. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a third.
Okay. Item 17. We now move on to the item 17 of the agenda. The update from committees since the meeting of council on the 7th of October 2024, which starts at page 39 of the main agenda pack. I invite the leader of the council to introduce the report.
Well, sorry. I'm standing orders here now, Chairman. Sorry about that. Yes, I move this there, as you say, it is listed down from page 107, 39 through to 106. Any points that wish to be raised, I'll throw up the bid answer.
Is there any questions? No. So, council happy to receive the report? Yep. Okay. We now move on to item 18 of the agenda on page 107, the report on joint arrangements since the last meeting of council. Councillor Knowles will present this report.
Put this on paper, Chairman. I'm happy to move it to council for it to be received by full council. If I can answer any questions, I will, Chairman.
Any questions? No, right. Happy to receive. One more. We now move on to item 19, any other business. There is no other urgent business to consider, so I will close the meeting just in time.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Gavin.
John.
Well done, all. Well done, Phil.
Yes.
Hard work in that. Well done.